Chapter 655. An arrogant voice sounded. Li Zongjiu never thought that his luck would be so good that someone would give him a pillow just when he was about to doze off. It also saved Li Zongjiu the trouble of searching everywhere. Feng Tengfei turned around and saw the person. His eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. Mr. Lan, this matter. Feng Tengfei saw Mr. Lan and knew that things were not going well. Mr. Lan was the trump card of their 100 medicine pavilion. Mr. Lan was quite famous in the city. He was already at the peak of his hometown. Now that he had come to Monarch City, he had become the head of the 100 medicine pavilion. Since it was selling herbs, it was necessary to hire some alchemists to oversee it. This kind of full service was necessary. Seeing Mr. Lan come, Feng Tengfei did not know what Mr. Lan wanted to do. Manager Feng, since this kid wants to represent the 100 medicine pavilion, let me test his strength. Don't worry, I will only use 30% of my strength to compete with you. Mr. Lan seemed to be very confident. When he looked at Li Zongjiu, there was a trace of provocation in his eyes. In addition, Li Zongjiu also noticed that Mr. Lan's eyes seemed to be looking in the direction of Pei Si from Chongqing Pavilion from time to time. Li Zongjiu was old and experienced. Naturally, he could tell that Mr. Lan wanted to attract the attention of Chongqing Pavilion. That was why he deliberately came to provoke them. Li Zongjiu just humiliated Pei Si from Chongqing Pavilion and Song Chu from Spirit Valley sect in front of everyone. Originally, the two of them would never let Li Zongjiu go. However, they were now chatting with Muron Wang and could not free themselves to deal with Li Zongjiu. Therefore, they let Li Zongjiu live peacefully until now. But for the others, if they could eliminate Li Zongjiu at this moment, wouldn't they be able to gain the favor of Chongqing Pavilion and Spirit Valley sect? After all, he had helped them vent their anger, which was equivalent to expressing his goodwill. Therefore, many people couldn't hold back, but they didn't have a good opportunity to step forward. Most of the people who came here today were alchemists. After all, this was an exchange between alchemists. Now that it had begun, many alchemists had their eyes on Li Zongjiu. They wanted to have some fun with Li Zongjiu. Lan Qingshu's lips curled into a cold smile. He looked at the restless people around him who were basically saying, "Sigh, why didn't I make a move earlier?" Lan Qingshu was slightly pleased with himself. If he killed Li Zongjiu, perhaps Pei Si of the Longevity Pavilion would have a good impression of him. When the time came, he might be able to get a job in the Longevity Pavilion. Whether it was the Longevity Pavilion or the Spirit Valley sect, they would only recruit some talented alchemists. They would not consider those who had reached the end of their road because there were too many alchemists like them. In their eyes, these alchemists were born in the wild and were looked down upon. This Lan Qingshu really knows how to make use of the opportunity. He's going up directly in such a situation. He's obviously trying to curry favor with Longevity Pavilion. Lan Qingshu only has a few tricks up his sleeves. He's just lucky to obtain a wisp of Wanyang fire. What's so great about that? But that kid won't be able to talk back for long. I'm afraid it won't be so simple when facing Lan Qingshu. The people around were also discussing, but most of them weren't optimistic about Li Zongjiu. Just a while ago, Li Zongjiu's situation was basically dug out. His highest achievement was getting first place in the 3 Great Academies exchange competition. It was also because of this that he received the Imperial Alchemist Qualification Certificate. In addition, the highest grade of elixir that he refined was only a middle grade 5 elixir. Although the grade of the elixir wasn't low. But in a competition like that, the ingredients given out were basically of good quality. It had to be said that among the many alchemists present today, more than half of them had concocted level 5 middle medicinal pills before. Therefore, this wasn't a proud achievement and could only be considered as ordinary. There were too many experts present. There were hidden dragons and crouching tigers. He has a spot, right? Li Zongjiu ignored Lan Qingshu. Do you think you have a spot just because you said so? Of course, he had to ask Feng Tingfei. This made Lan Qingxiu furious. Was this brat doubting his right to speak? Was it that difficult for him, Lan Qingxiu, to obtain a spot in the Dark Horse Elixir gathering? How dare this kid look down on him? However, Lan Qingxiu wasn't angry. Perhaps this kid was good at provoking him like this. Feng Tingfei nodded. Mr. Lan is the chief alchemist of our 100 Medicine Hall. Of course, you have the right. It's up to you whether you want to or not. Feng Tingfei's words gave Lan Qingxiu some comfort. At the very least, Feng Tingfei's words were still useful to Lan Qingxiu. He gave Lan Qingxiu enough face. Alright, then you. After Li Zongjiu confirmed that Lan Qingxiu was qualified, he agreed to compete with Lan Qingxiu. Where do we fight? Here. As he spoke, Li Zongjiu took out the weapon in his hand. Thunder/Blade. The thunder/blade emitted a terrifying power of lightning. Lan Qingxiu and Lan Qingxiu's expressions changed when they saw the thunder/blade flashing with lightning. Hey, what are you trying to do? As alchemists, we have to compete with alchemists. Why are you using a blade? Lan Qingxiu was a little nervous when he saw Li Zongjiu's actions. Was there something wrong with this guy's head? Why did he take out his weapon? Could it be that he thought he wanted to have a fight with him? Oh, then tell me. How do you want to compete? You can choose. Li Zongjiu put away the thunder/blade in his hand. This Li Zongjiu had attracted the attention of many people just now. This Li Zongjiu was really a little too straightforward. Without saying a word, he directly attacked. Boss, why don't we just let it go? This guy seems pretty strong. Koen Erisher couldn't help but say. Looking at the person in front of him, he felt a little guilty. After all, it was just a spot. There was no need to make such a big move. It was better to keep a low profile and talk about it slowly. This Dark Horse Elixir gathering is a trial for you. If you want to be famous, you have to go. Why don't you deal with this guy? Li Zongjiu said sternly. No. You should do it. I'll hold the line for you. When Lan Qingxiu heard Li Zongjiu's casual and disdainful attitude, the corners of his lips curled up slightly. It was as cold as the edge of a blade. In that case, let's have a fire battle on the Elixir platform. Chapter 656. Flying Roar. As a city guard, they naturally had to prepare some secret weapons. These weapons were usually kept secret. They would only be taken out when they were carrying out some special tasks. For example, the Flying Roar. It was one of Guan Shifei's secret weapons. Speaking of the Flying Roar, it was a powerful yuan weapon specially created by the Heavenly Workshop. It could track an enemy within a 20-mile radius and was omnipotent. Once it aimed, it would lock onto the enemy and would not rest until the enemy was dead. It would be difficult to escape its tracking even if the target soared into the sky. Furthermore, once the Flying Roar was unleashed, even a Yuan monarch elite would be severely injured. Bring it. Guan Shifei waved his hand and a two-wheeled war chariot was pushed out from the darkness. It looked like a cannon, but there was a fiery red arrowhead on top of it. Once the ignition was lit, it was considered to be activated. Very good. Xiao Han's eyes flashed coldly. At this moment, hundreds of people were lying in ambush, waiting for Li Zongjiu and the others to arrive. Pei Si, who was about to leave, quietly arrived at the outskirts of the forest after receiving the news. Interesting. The commander of the Imperial Guards can actually summon city guards. There will be a good show tonight. Pei Si's eyes flashed with a hint of mockery. His gaze flickered slightly as he immediately sensed two figures hiding in the distance. Sun Chu and Nantian. These two old fellows are really sneaky. Obviously, many people had guessed that there would be an important show tonight. Therefore, they had not left early and had come here based on the information they had received. Li Zongjiu and Kun Erisher did not let the crowd wait for long. He directly appeared in the middle of the wild forest. The Kun Wing spear appeared in Kun Arashi's hand. You people better leave first. I advise you not to die in vain. Lon Kun spoke to the person hiding in the dark. Given the strength of these people, it would be difficult for them to escape the senses of the two of them. However, although Lon Kun had already spoken out of his kindness, these people in front of him remained indifferent. Li Zongjiu, tell us the truth. Did my son's death have anything to do with you? Xiao Han and the others walked out. Their leader, Xiao Han, also spoke. Today, Li Zongjiu and Lon Kun would die without a doubt. As for whether their corpses would be left intact and whether they would be tortured in the end, it would depend on their own awareness. If their awareness was correct and they were willing to tell the truth, then it would be easy to kill them with a single slash of the saber. However, if the two of them were unwilling to speak, they could not be blamed for being vicious and merciless. After surviving on the battlefield for so many years, they had already grasped some ruthless methods. If the two of them were unwilling to speak, they would not mind letting them have a taste of their methods. Are you talking about this? Li Zongjiu directly threw out a cloth bag in his hand. Within the range of his mind power, there were at least 500 people lying in ambush within a radius of 100 meters. Li Zongjiu was indeed worthy of being part of the army. He could easily summon so many people to help him. However, such an encirclement was nothing to Li Zongjiu. A ball-shaped object rolled a few times on the ground. Although the night was dark, one could still vaguely see some bloodstains on the bag. In order to prevent an ambush, Guan Shifei also signaled for one of his men to go forward. The man urged his horse forward and came in front of the bag. When he opened the bag, he was stunned on the spot. When he regained his senses, he also directly threw out the bag in his hand. Oh my God! A round human head appeared in front of everyone's eyes. From Xiao Han's angle, he could just see the appearance of the human head at this moment. Wasn't this the head of his precious son? Although the hair was messy and the blood was smeared all over the face, Xiao Han could still recognize that this was his son in an instant. My son! Xiao Han suddenly screamed at the top of his lungs. With a leap, Xiao Han arrived in front of the head. The soldier who had carelessly tossed the head away also hurried to stand in front of Xiao Han. Sir, please forgive me. Get out of my sight. Xiao Han directly kicked the soldier away. The armor in front of his chest caved in, leaving a footprint. He flew back a few hundred meters and directly hit a big tree. Blood spurted out of his mouth and his head tilted to one side. He was directly kicked to death. My son! Xiao Han held Xiao Tian's head in his arms and cried bitterly. At this moment, it seemed that even the heavens were moved by the deep affection between the father and son. There was actually such deep affection in it. Thunderclaps rumbled in the sky. Lightning quickly surged across the sky, and a terrifying cold wind blew at the scene. 2 lines of tears flowed down Xiao Han's face. The disheveled hair on his head was fixed again. His scarlet eyes were fixed on Li Zongjiu in front of him. Who ordered you to do this? Who is the mastermind behind this? Xiao Han stood up. In the fierce wind, his clothes and hair were also disheveled. At this moment, Xiao Han's body looked so frail and weak amidst the fierce winds. Although his body was thin and weak, there was bound to be a bloody storm that shook the heavens and the earth between the thunder and lightning. Don't yell and scream. Don't worry, no one is targeting you. I just want to kill. Li Zongjiu waved his hand and said. And you don't have to be sad, because you can accompany him soon. Listening to Li Zongjiu's words, he was too arrogant. Did he have hundreds of people, or did they have hundreds of people? The relationship between them and the enemy was still unclear. Very well. Don't worry, I, Xiao Han, will make sure your whole family is buried with my son. Kill them. At Xiao Han's command, a thunderclap sounded in the sky. The whole sky was filled with rolling thunder, as if it was a very good day to kill and vent one's anger. Kill! As soon as Guan Shifei gave the order, countless flames shot out from the treetops, bringing with them the sound of breaking wind. Kuan flash! Kuan Erasher shook the long spear in his hand. Suddenly, a terrifying force flew out like a bolt of lightning, directly shattering the arrows around him. Chapter 657. Li Zongjiu did not pay much attention to Su Sha's agitated state. Since the duel was about to begin, Li Zongjiu walked into the arena directly. He nodded at Su Hong, who walked over to Li Zongjiu and whispered, "You have to be careful of this person. The set sun flame is not ordinary." "Got it." Li Zongjiu replied nonchalantly. "What set sun flame or heavenly sun flame?" Basically, Li Zongjiu did not care about them at all. How dare he play with fire in front of Li Zongjiu? Although Li Zongjiu wasn't born to play with fire, his experience in playing with fire from head to toe, from every strand of his hair, far exceeded that of his opponent. Lan Qingshu, who was standing opposite him, looked as though he did not know what was good for him. After walking into the arena, he cupped his fists at the people around him, as though everyone was there to cheer for him. He. "Everyone, I'll have to embarrass myself here," Lan Qingshu said with a hypocritical smile. Naturally, the people around him were not happy with him either. After all, such a good opportunity to flatter Lan Qingshu had been given to him. It was really upsetting. If they had gone up now, they might have been the one chosen by the Chongqing Pavilion. Now that such a good opportunity had been snatched away by this guy and he was even jumping around in front of his eyes, he wanted to see just how capable he was. Everyone was waiting for Lan Qingshu to make his move. Although Li Zongjiu's strength was nothing to be afraid of, he was not a fool. He might have some tricks up his sleeves. He might be able to kill Lan Qingshu easily. Things like failing miserably at such a simple task were common occurrences. After showing off for a while, Lan Qingshu looked at Li Zongjiu. "Don't worry. Tonight is just the beginning. You will have a very long and profound experience in this duel," Lan Qingshu said with a cold look in his eyes. "Come on, I'll give you a chance. I'll let you make a move. I'm not an unreasonable person." Li Zongjiu flipped his wrist and hooked his finger at Lan Qingshu. Lan Qingshu's smile widened when he heard Li Zongjiu's words. This kid really knew how to play dumb. Lan Qingshu wanted to see if Li Zongjiu would still be able to say the same thing when he tore Li Zongjiu into two. "One move? No, I only need half a move to kill you," Lan Qingshu roared. He crossed his hands, as if he was holding a bowl. Then, there was a loud bang in his palms, and a powerful energy was rapidly gathering. Flames. The flame of the setting sun was like the radiance of the setting sun, causing the 10,000-T mountain manor to be illuminated at night. He looked at the fire of the setting sun in Lan Qingshu's hand. Gradually, it became stronger and stronger, and the surrounding people also became nervous. Many people also felt a sense of pressure. This level of strength caused the surrounding people to feel a trace of surprise. Lan Qingshu's control of the fire of the setting sun is getting stronger. What a powerful force. Did he find another wisp of the fire of the setting sun? I've seen the fire of the setting sun a few years ago, but it didn't give off such a strong pressure. The people below were discussing. Some were envious, some were jealous, and some were disdainful of the flame in Lan Qingshu's hand. TSK, if it wasn't for the fire of the setting sun, he wouldn't be where he is today. If he has such a fortuitous encounter, he should have hidden it well. Lan Qingshu is in such a hurry to pick it out. He doesn't know how to write the word low-key. No one was talking about Li Zongjiu anymore. When Lan Qingshu took out the fire of the setting sun, no one believed that Li Zongjiu could survive. The elixir platform was not a place where one could simply talk his way out of it. Lan Qingshu was ready to attack. The fire of the setting sun was condensed, and it was about to erupt. Boom! The terrifying residual sun fire immediately turned into a fireball. As the fireball whizzed through the air, it seemed to burn through space and quickly arrived in front of Li Zongjio. "Be careful!" Su Sha couldn't help but shout. The fire of the setting sun was already a terrifying force for Su Sha. If it was Su Sha facing the fire of the setting sun, she would definitely be defeated by this move. Seeing that Li Zongjio was still standing at the same spot, Su Sha wanted to go up and push Li Zongjio. Even Su Hong and the rest were staring at Li Zongjio. A glint flashed across Pei Si's eyes. Everyone's eyes were immediately filled with astonishment. What? The audience below the platform were shocked. They didn't know what had just happened. It happened too fast, and they couldn't see clearly. One move is over. Li Zongjio looked at Lan Qingshu without the slightest bit of pity. He had already given Lan Qingshu a chance. He had said that he would use one move, and that was that. Rise! Li Zongjio raised his hand. Lan Qingshu and the people around him didn't see any movement. However, there was a boom under Lan Qingshu's feet, and a ball of fire appeared. My feet! Lan Qingshu immediately felt a burning sensation. He even had the urge to chop off his feet. However, Lan Qingshu didn't have time to do anything else. A strong burning sensation appeared in his heart and lungs. As an alchemist, Lan Qingshu was very clear about the condition of his body. No! Lan Qingshu immediately let out a long howl. This was the last sound he could make. After he roared, Lan Qingshu's entire body exploded. Flames were released from his body like a meta beast, devouring Lan Qingshu. Lan Qingshu's body was instantly burned to ashes. In anyone's eyes, this was an extremely shocking scene. Lan Qingshu's figure directly disappeared. All that was left was a storage ring and a flame. It seemed like he was trying to escape. Many people saw this wisp of flame. Residual sun flame. Immediately, some people's eyes were filled with desire. They were even ready to take action. However, Li Zongjio reached out his hand and sucked the residual sun flame into his hand. An aura of an expert was released from his body. He looked down at the people below. In their eyes, other than fear and shock, there was also a trace of fear hidden in the depths of their hearts. Su Sha opened her cherry mouth wide. Looking at the scene in front of her, she couldn't regain her senses. Sigh, I knew it. It's like this again. Chapter 658. Lan Kuan's eyes were already wide open. However, he still couldn't figure out how Li Zongjio had managed to end the battle so quickly. This caused the audience below the stage to be dumbfounded. Some of them were even looking around. They thought that Lan Qingshu had used some kind of concealment technique to hide himself, which was why they could not see him clearly. It should be some kind of secret technique. How could such a living person disappear just like that? What? Su Hong and the rest were shocked and they saw what happened. A cold light flashed in Song Chu's eyes. Although Li Zongjio's attack was very subtle, Song Chu could still clearly feel the appearance of a wave of energy. He immediately knew that Li Zongjio's body also had a kind of yuan fire. It seems like you are relying on this wisp of yuan fire. Song Chu's eyes gradually relaxed. In his opinion, he already knew Li Zongjio's trump card. In that case, Li Zongjio's words were not mysterious at all. It would be easy for him to destroy it. Pil King Nantian, who was beside him, looked at Li Zongjio and became even more vigilant. In fact, Pil King Nantian had fought with Li Zongjio before. In the end, he lost miserably and had no choice but to leave Li Zongjio's house. Now, Li Zongjio seemed to have a new trick up his sleeve. This made Pil King Nantian even more vigilant. He actually has a yuan fire. It seems like Li Zongjio's luck is not ordinary. Pei Si's eyes flashed with a trace of astonishment. To be able to encounter and subdue a yuan fire at such a young age, he must have had a fortuitous encounter. Otherwise, the power of the yuan fire alone was comparable to that of a yuan king expert. It was not something that could be subdued easily. However, there was no fear in Pei Si's eyes. Instead, there was a trace of interest. You possess a primordial fire. Speaking of which, you do have the qualifications to become my opponent. Pei Si thought in his heart. It was simply unbelievable that Pei Si could still be so confident even after Li Zongjiu had displayed such powerful strength. It seemed like Pei Si also had a trump card in his hand. After all, he was the young pavilion master of Chongqing Pavilion. If he didn't have a certain amount of strength, he wouldn't be able to keep his position. He wouldn't even dare to casually walk around Jianghu. The level of danger in Jianghu was naturally clear to everyone. Since Pei Si dared to step out, it meant that he had the ability to protect himself. It's done. That spot is mine, right? Li Zongjiu waved his hand and leaped up, arriving in front of Feng Tengfei. At this moment, Feng Tengfei was still in shock. Where was Lan Qingshu? Was Lan Qingshu really burned to ashes? Could this be a trick put on by the two of them? Could it be that Lan Qingshu invited Li Zongjiu here on purpose to avoid the responsibility of the Dark Horse Elixir meeting? Or could it be that Li Zongjiu and Lan Qingshu colluded to show off their strength in front of everyone, so that others wouldn't dare to offend them easily? If that was the case, they were a little too scheming. It was scary just thinking about it. However, this was just a thought that Feng Tengfei was deceiving himself. Lan Qingshu was already dead. The flame seed of the setting sun was enough to explain the situation. Moreover, this flame seed happened to be in Li Zongjiu's hands. Everyone saw this scene, and when they woke up, they would be especially enthusiastic towards Li Zongjiu, because this was a primordial fire kindling. With this primordial fire, it would be a great help to the cultivation of alchemy. Everyone present was very clear about this. If someone were to find this fire seed, then they would certainly refine it in a very secretive manner. If one wanted to buy it in the market, then it would simply be impossible to do so. No one would sell such a thing, but now, Li Zongjiu had such an ownerless fire seed in his hand. Of course. Mr. Lan. Lan Qingshu overestimated himself. It's fine that he's dead. Our 100 medicine pavilion won't pursue this matter. Feng Tengfei said hurriedly. That's enough. The other spot belongs to my brother, Kun Erisher. If anyone dares to touch it, tell them to come find me. Li Zongjiu said. Kun Erisher, who was beside him, was also moved. The quota of the Dark Horse Elixir meeting itself was a double-edged sword, but of course, there were countless people who wanted it. It was unknown how many people wanted to mix in. Even if they were a little unlucky, they could basically take away a 6th-grade medicinal herb. Find time to refine this. Li Zongjiu waved his hand and threw the flame seed of the setting sun to Kun Erisher. After Kun Erisher reached out and caught it, he was shocked when he saw the flame seed clearly. This, I can't accept this. Kun Erisher waved his hand and said. Although he said that he couldn't accept it, when he waved his hand, he put the flame seed into his pocket. He couldn't wait to find time to refine this flame seed. This kind of flame was no different from trash in front of Li Zongjiu. However, for people like Kun Erisher who hadn't obtained the primordial fire, it was a priceless treasure. Even Su Sha looked at this scene in disbelief. What did she witness today? What happened to Li Zongjiu was extremely difficult for Su Sha to understand. First, he directly dealt with the son of the Imperial Guard commander, Xiao Tiance. Then, with this move, he killed Lan Qingshu, who was ranked 20th in the Sacred Flame Royal City. After obtaining the flame seed of the setting sun, he didn't hesitate and directly threw it to Kun Erisher. One should know that even if one did not refine this fire seed, just by selling it or even auctioning it, one would be able to obtain an extremely rich return. This return was basically something that one could not imagine. It would definitely exceed one's imagination. Li Zhongjiu generously gave this flame seed to Kun Erisher. This made Su Sha even more confused. She couldn't see through Li Zhongjiu. This is... Oh my god, I don't want to know this person anymore. Su Hong was silent for a while. There was a risk in going on the elixir platform. After all, the people present weren't ordinary people. They were all reputable people who had been in the Jianghu for a period of time. Since Lan Qingshu was standing on the platform, his life and death were up to fate. Even if Li Zhongjiu killed him in front of everyone, the bystanders couldn't say anything. Li Zhongjiu's attitude of not caring about worldly affairs made Su Hong admire him, but also gave him a headache. Su Hong immediately signaled the host to move on to the next item. He wanted to dilute this matter first. Cough, cough. Ladies and gentlemen, next, we will enter the lucky draw segment of this banquet. Chapter 659. White Deer Manor. Bang! A figure crashed heavily into the ground, creating a deep crater. The ground of the entire White Deer Manor was already in tatters. Lu Wenshan, who had just woken up, was awakened by the continuous shaking. When he saw the scene in front of him, his face suddenly turned serious. What the fuck? Isn't that the Black Mountain Sword King? Why is he lying on the ground like a dead dog? Lu Wenshan's heart was immediately stunned. He looked at the Black Mountain Sword King. At this moment, the Black Mountain Sword King and Lu Wenshan's eyes met. The distance between the two was only 5 or 6 meters. The Black Mountain Sword King immediately stretched out his hand towards Lu Wenshan, as if he wanted to ask for help. When Lu Wenshan saw this, he of course immediately closed his eyes and pretended to be unconscious. He absolutely could not let the enemy find out that he was still awake. Otherwise, he would directly hit his head. Lu Wenshan had long had enough of the feeling of being knocked unconscious. Du Lieni and the others were in the distance, admiring the scene in front of them. It was simply too shocking. The Black Mountain Sword King was a dignified Sword King expert. Now Du Lieni finally knew what kind of group she was in contact with. Ever since he saw Li Zhongjiu, he realized that things seemed to be out of the ordinary. The things she had seen could no longer be described by common sense. But for Du Lieni, all of this no longer mattered. Now that she had avenged her great hatred and killed the enemy of many years with her own hands, this feeling of joy was like a dream. For Du Lieni, she simply could not believe it. One had to know that the thought and expectation of killing his enemy with his own hands was still something that was far away in the future half a month ago. Now, such a thing had happened. After meeting Li Zhongjiu. In less than a month, she had completed it. Li Zhongjiu was simply a man of his word. Even Du Lieni had an illusion that in this world, there seemed to be nothing that Li Zhongjiu could not do. No matter what happened now, Du Lieni would not be surprised. Even if the sky fell down, Du Lieni believed that everyone in the world would be crushed to death, but Li Zhongjiu would absolutely not die. Dou Ling lifted the Black Mountain Sword King up with one hand. The Black Mountain Sword King's eyes immediately revealed a look of terror. Thunder Soldier Charm. In a moment of desperation, the Black Mountain Sword King could no longer care so much. If he continued to be beaten, he would die. The Black Mountain Sword King immediately threw out the precious amulet he had on him. Boom! The terrifying power of thunder and weapons swept towards Dou Ling. Dou Ling reacted quickly and caught the Thunder Soldier with one hand. However, she was still sent flying by the terrifying shockwave. Boom! Dou Ling's body flew backward, but the light around her was still swirling. The Thunder Soldier charm did not hurt Dou Ling at all. However, as the Thunder Soldier charm spread, the murderous intent in Dou Ling's eyes gradually faded, and the aura on her body gradually returned to normal. The Black Mountain Sword King did not care so much. He directly leaped and swept out of the White Deer Manor. He did not want to stay in this terrifying place any longer. What he suffered today was the most terrifying thing that the Black Mountain Sword King had ever suffered since his debut. Caught in Do Ling-er's hand, he was like a weak and powerless chick, at her mercy. He was the Black Mountain Sword King, vicious and merciless, and did not recognize his own family. Now, he was so humiliated that he was brutally abused. If people found out, then how could he, the Black Mountain Sword King, show his face in the future? But fortunately, the Black Mountain Sword King's life was saved. My Thunder Soldier Charm. I spent 500 upper-grade primordial stones to buy it. The Black Mountain Sword King wanted to cry but had no tears. Although his life was saved, the Thunder Soldier Talisman was equivalent to half of the Black Mountain Sword King's life. He had thought that it would be easy to get, but now it had turned out like this. The Black Mountain Sword King's heart was filled with grief and indignation. However, this loss could only be borne by the Black Mountain Sword King himself. Who would have thought that such a thing would happen? He only went to save a person, but he actually lost everything he signed up for. It was simply too pitiful. This was the legendary, breaking teeth and swallowing it into the stomach. Now, not only did he lose the Thunder Soldier charm, but he also failed to save Lu Wenshan. This was the most embarrassing situation. But now, the Black Mountain Sword King did not care so much. He had to leave this place quickly. If the witch caught up, he did not know what to do. In the end, the Black Mountain Sword King endured his serious injuries and quickly fled into the distance. No one knew which dark corner he was hiding in. Inside the manor. When she saw Do Ling-er's aura gradually recover, Du Lianyi was even a little scared and did not dare to approach Do Ling-er easily. It was because the fighting strength that Do Ling showed just now was too terrifying. The Black Mountain Sword King was like a toy in front of Do Ling-er, completely without any power to fight back. Did I see blood just now? Do Ling-er also had a sudden feeling of realization. She couldn't even remember what had just happened. Du Lianyi and Ninghu both nodded repeatedly. Looking at the bumpy and dilapidated manor in front of her, Do Ling knew that she must have entered that state again. I told you, I can't see blood, Do Ling said with an innocent face. At this moment, Lu Wenshan, who was lying on the ground and pretending to be dead, twitched when he heard this. Although he was not clear about the situation before, he still remembered very clearly that the Black Mountain Sword King had fled. After using the Thunder Soldier Talisman, he was able to escape. It was really shameful. Finally, Lu Wenshan thought about it and decided to stay here first. As long as he was obedient in the White Deer Manor, at least his life would not be in danger. Therefore, Lu Wenshan gradually relaxed and accepted the fate of being imprisoned in the White Deer Manor. 10,000 Tea Manor. When the banquet was in the middle of its progress, Zhuangying of the 10,000 Tea Manor also sent someone to report to the Imperial Guards and let them find Xiao Tian's body. When the Imperial Guards found Xiao Tian's body, they were shocked. They were shocked. Not only Xiao Tian's, but also Xiao Tian's special guards. These people were specially trained by Xiao Tian's to protect him. Now, all of them had died here. People couldn't help but be shocked. Xiao Tian's was clearly here to exterminate his sect. Quickly inform the commander. Chapter 660. As the deputy commander of the Right Army, Man Lang was filled with joy. His heart was filled with joy and joy. Of course, he was happy when he saw that Xiao Tian's had died. This was because he was well aware of Xiao Tian's background. With Xiao Tian's around, it was impossible for him, the deputy commander, to be promoted to a higher position. Although he was only the deputy commander of the Right Army. However, if he could become the commander of the Right Corps, the level of benefits and treatment would be on a completely different level. If Xiao Tian's didn't commit any serious crimes, his position wouldn't be shaken. But now, Xiao Tian's was beheaded in the 10,000 T mountain villa. This matter must be very serious. Perhaps Xiao Tian's had provoked someone he couldn't afford to offend. But for Man Lang, this was a very good opportunity for him to be promoted. He immediately sent someone to inform Xiao Tian's father, who was the great commander of the Imperial Guards. Such an important matter must be reported as soon as possible. Man Lang also ordered the surrounding area to be sealed. Then, he observed the dozens of corpses on the ground. 4 of them were only unconscious. They were now captured because the place where they were unconscious was only a few steps away from Xiao Tian's corpse. Take him down and interrogate him. Make them tell me everything they know. Man Lang said coldly. There must be something fishy about this matter. After such a large group of people died, there was no movement. Don't tell me that the 10,000 T mountain villa didn't know about it. This happened in your territory, so you must be the first to know about it. There was no doubt about it. But now, the blood was almost dry, and your people only came to inform me. Aren't you looking for trouble? Furthermore, how could there be no one patrolling such a large area? As Imperial Guards, if they didn't even have this bit of vigilance, how could they protect the safety of the Imperial City? If this matter wasn't handled well, the Imperial Guards would be in big trouble. After all, the head of the Right Corps commander had been chopped off by someone. For the Imperial Guards, if they couldn't protect themselves, how could they protect others? There was only one wound on these people's bodies. One strike to kill. One of Man Lang's subordinates quickly investigated the area and immediately returned to report. The 15 Imperial Guards in front of him were Xiao Tian's confidants, so they were the only ones present at that time. Who was the person who was supposed to patrol this area? Barbarian Wolf asked. It's the 3rd group. Get me the leader of the 3rd group. Man Lang ordered. Not long after, the leader of the 3rd group was brought before Man Lang. You were supposed to be in charge of this area. Why weren't you on duty at that time? Reporting to the deputy commander, at that time, the commander found this lowly one and asked this lowly one to guard the foot of the mountain. The leader of the 3rd group hurriedly said. Such a big thing had happened. It was like hanging a knife over his head. It was already very courageous of him not to run away immediately. After all, this area was under his jurisdiction. Oh. He transferred you to the foot of the mountain, so why did he stay here? Could it be that he stayed here to meet his enemy? Man Lang coldly said. However, on the other side, the unconscious Imperial Guards quickly told him everything that had happened. If they didn't clearly explain such a big thing, then they would definitely die. Therefore, at this moment, these Imperial Guards also told him the whole story. While Man Lang was listening to the news, there was a trace of astonishment on his face. A maidservant. According to Man Lang's information, these guards were all knocked unconscious. The reason why they were gathered here was to help Xiao Tian's guard so that Xiao Tian's and a maidservant could do things peacefully. Basically, any man would know what was going on. However, Xiao Tian's was really pitiful. For a mere maidservant, he actually lost his life in the end. It was really hard to believe. Indeed, the gains did not make up for the losses. Who would have thought that such a thing would happen? It seems like the culprit only did it on the spur of the moment. That maidservant, what's her name? Capture her for me. As for those guards, the others are all dead. Only a few of them are fine. Since they wanted to silence people, how could they do such a dirty thing? There must be something fishy going on. Man Lang did not want to be played like a monkey. The reason why these people were still alive was probably because the enemy wanted to deliberately leave some false signals. This time, things have gotten a little out of hand. Now, the people in the Myriad Tea Villa are all important guests. I can't possibly capture all of them. Man Lang thought in his heart. If that was the case, there was no other way. This was a very troublesome matter. Next, he would have to see how the senior commander would deal with this matter when he arrived. Anyway, he had already grasped the general information. Before the senior commander arrived, he had to capture the maidservant. Man Lang thought in his heart. If he was unable to provide an explanation for this, the first commander would definitely blame him, Man Lang, once he was angered. Therefore, before the senior commander arrived, he had to get to the bottom of this matter. In the banquet garden, Li Zongjiu and Kun Erisher were looking at the invitation letter in their hands nervously. There were already people who had won prizes in front of them. However, they were only the third and second prizes. The best prize, a 6th-grade medicinal herb, had not been won yet. Therefore, the two of them were nervously looking forward to it. Next, it's the most important moment of this banquet's lucky draw. A 6th-grade medicinal herb. Xianyang grass. The provider of this Xianyang grass is the 100 Medicine Pavilion. Thank you for your sponsorship. The host on the stage was also blabbering a bunch of nonsense, making Li Zongjiu want to rush up and punch him in the face. After talking for a long time, he finally got to the point. He directly drew a number from a box. The number of the winner of the first prize is, however, the host did not read out the number behind it. The sound of iron hooves and armor could be heard from the door. Boom! The door was opened. Immediately, a group of armored soldiers rushed in from all directions. The leader was riding on the back of an armored rhinoceros, his entire body brimming with killing intent. Chapter 661. This scene was beyond everyone's expectations. Weren't these people from the Imperial Guards? Did these Imperial Guards take the wrong medicine? General Xiao. Su Hong stood up. When he saw the leader of the group, he immediately frowned. The person in front of him was the commander of the Imperial Guards, Xiao Han. Xiao Han had been on the battlefield all his life and had killed countless people. He had a son at an old age and gradually became the commander of the Imperial Guards. He loved his son dearly and had brought him with him since he was young to protect Xiao Tians. Even today's lucrative task was directly handed over to Xiao Tians to supervise. Who would have thought that such a thing would happen? After hearing the news, Xiao Han had no time to say anything. He immediately led his men to the 10,000 T villa. Elder Su Hong, the Imperial Guards are doing their job. Please excuse us. Xiao Han cupped his hands at Elder Su Hong. After all, Elder Su Hong was the elder of the Heavenly Elixir Pavilion. His rank was not low. Most importantly, he could speak directly to the Emperor Shengyan. The Heavenly Elixir Pavilion was a project that the Emperor Shengyan attached great importance to. Therefore, Su Hong's status could not be ignored. Did something happen? Su Hong came in front of Xiao Han. Kun Erisher also took a step forward and stood in front of Li Zongjiu. If you are discovered, you should run away first. This man is Xiao Tian's father. Su Sha happened to be beside the two of them. When she saw Xiao Han, her heart skipped a beat as if it was about to stop. The situation in front of her was not something that could be avoided so easily. Su Sha happened to be present when Xiao Tian's died. Although this matter had nothing to do with her, it was inevitable that she would get into trouble. Most importantly, Li Zongjiu and Kun Erisher were very likely to be caught by Xiao Han. As long as the maid described their appearance, it would be impossible. None of them would be able to escape. This was the consequence of cutting the grass without removing the roots. Su Sha looked at Kun Erisher and Li Zongjiu, trying to find a trace of regret on their faces. Although Su Sha did not like to kill the innocent, this matter was extremely serious. For the sake of the big picture, she could accept and even support the idea of killing them directly. But after this matter, she would never be friends with Li Zongjiu and Xiao Han again. However, there was a trace of nervousness on Kun Arashi's face. Li Zongjiu did not move at all. That is Xiao Tian's father, right? Looking at the situation, Li Zongjiu seemed to want to kill Xiao Han as well. No one could figure out what he was thinking. The two of you only need to deny it even if you're beaten to death. They will not dare to do anything because they have no evidence. Su Sha came to Li Zongjiu and said. Evidence? Speaking of evidence, Xiao Tian's head was still in Li Zongjiu's southern ring. It would be easy to find out. However, Xiao Han was not qualified to check Li Zongjiu's storage ring. Li Zongjiu certainly knew that Xiao Tian's father would come to find them soon, so he let Du Lianyi leave first. As for the maid, Li Zongjiu did not intend to kill her. If he had to sacrifice a woman for Li Zongjiu's matter, it would be too shameful. Li Zongjiu would never do such a thing, no matter if it was in his previous life or in this life. Among the crowd, Xiao Dai's face turned pale because she had recognized one of the imperial guards. It was this person who called her over, and that was what happened later. Now that these people had come to find her, it would be easy for them to find her. Therefore, Xiao Dai was extremely nervous. Hiding in the crowd, once she was discovered, she would be dealt with unimaginable torture. Alchemists, please calm down. I am Xiao Han, the commander of the Imperial Guards. I am here today to catch a suspect in a murder case. Please stay where you are and do not move around. Otherwise, you will be treated as accomplices. Xiao Han said coldly. So what if these people are alchemists? Now that his son has been beheaded by someone, you guys are here singing and dancing in celebration. I didn't summon the troops, and instead, I directly threw you into the dungeon and tortured you. That's already giving you a lot of face. Imperial Guards, find them. Xiao Han gave the order, and without waiting for the approval of the people around him, the cavalry immediately charged in. The alchemists around were disturbed. Of course, they were a little unhappy, but now they knew that the situation in front of them wasn't right. If they stood out at this time, their heads might be chopped off directly. At that time, they would be quickly sent to jail. Then, they would be in for a good time. Tsang Chu and the others sat steadily like mountains. They didn't put a mere Imperial Guard commander in their eyes. You're just a mere Imperial Guard. You're just a guard. Since when is it your turn to investigate a case? However, they hadn't bumped into them yet. Naturally, they would put this matter aside for the time being. Although they were unhappy, they didn't flare up. They just looked at the situation in front of them and thought that it would be better to just let it go after a search. Since they had encountered such a situation, they would naturally tolerate it as much as possible. Presumptuous. Xiao Han and the others' eyes were suddenly attracted by a voice. When they looked over, it just so happened that the Imperial Guard was sent flying by a slap from Li Zongjiu. This Imperial Guard was just passing by Li Zongjiu. He did not know what was going on at all, but he was directly slapped by Li Zongjiu. When he saw the guard fly out, even Kun Erasher, who was beside Li Zongjiu, did not understand. Why did you make the first move? It was simply unexpected. It was hard to imagine. Li Zongjiu withdrew his slap. This guy who framed him and took the initiative to find trouble was really restrained. In the past, Li Zongjiu often did such things. However, that was after his strength had reached a certain level. He often relied on his strength to find trouble everywhere. Anyway, you can't do anything to him. After sending Li Zongjiu flying with a slap, the surrounding Imperial Guards immediately rushed towards Li Zongjiu. Naturally, Xiao Han could not mobilize the Imperial Guards in the Imperial City outside. If he did, who would protect the Imperial City? The Imperial Guards present at the scene were all Imperial Guards of the Right Army. When Man Lang saw the commotion, he didn't waste any more words. He immediately drew his blade and walked towards Li Zongjiu with a fiendish expression. What kind of situation was this? There was actually such an ignorant person. Su Sha was also dumbfounded. This Li Zongjiu, what kind of fire chicken was he going to do? Chapter 662. Who are you? How dare you attack an imperial guard? Man Lang and the others had already surrounded Li Zongjiu and Kuan Erisher. Among them, Su Sha was still standing at her original spot. The others immediately turned around and left, afraid that they would be implicated. The expressions of the people outside immediately changed. When Su Hong saw that the one who attacked was Li Zongjiu, he was also surprised. Why is it this brat again? Is this brat trying to cause trouble? And that girl Su Sha, why is she involved as well? It seems that she is quite familiar with Li Zongjiu and the others. How dare you dirty my boots? Li Zongjiu rolled up his sleeves and pointed at the mud on his boots. Everyone was shocked by such a baffling reason. Barbarian Wolf's eyes widened. Brat, could it be that you seriously injured an imperial guard in front of so many imperial guards just because of a bit of mud on your shoes? After that imperial guard fell to the ground, he never got up again. Obviously, he was beaten to the ground by Li Zongjiu. Such a scene simply shocked everyone. Isn't this brat too fierce? Or does this brat have a guilty conscience? Is he looking for an excuse to attack? But this excuse is too sudden. There's no consideration at all. Take him down. Since that's the case, there's no need to wait. Man Lang immediately gave the order. Immediately, the surrounding imperial guards rushed forward without hesitation. The swords in their hands slashed downwards. The sharp sword chi instantly sealed off Li Zongjiu's front and back. However, Li Zongjiu's figure flickered. He immediately released several afterimages and rushed towards these people. In an instant, there were already countless afterimages that sent more than 20 imperial guards flying. Man Lang's eyes were filled with shock. He didn't expect Li Zongjiu's skills to be so extraordinary. From afar, Pei Si was slightly shocked when he saw Li Zongjiu's movements. This was because Li Zongjiu's movements were faster than he imagined. He couldn't even see Li Zongjiu's figure clearly. If I were to face Li Zongjiu's skills, I would probably have to forcefully resist. Pei Si thought in his heart. In his heart, he was also secretly comparing himself with Li Zongjiu. Of course, when he was comparing himself, he naturally put himself in an advantageous position. It seemed that he was always thinking that with his strength, he could easily take down Li Zongjiu. The barbarian wolf sword came out like a dragon. This sword strike even contained the sword Dao that he had cultivated for more than 40 years. The sword in his hand was also affectionately named by Man Lang as the Barbarian King's Sword. It was because he had invited an elemental rune grandmaster to inscribe an elemental rune formation on the sword. This formation would allow the strength and weight of the sword to increase exponentially when he attacked, just like how the Barbarian King wielded a heavy sword. The power was definitely not what it looked like. Right now was a very good opportunity to perform a meritorious service. Therefore, Man Lang definitely wouldn't be soft-hearted. When he attacked, he fully displayed the strength of a grade 1 Yuan monarch. Ordinary imperial guards were already in the Yuan ancestor realm. If they wanted to have a position, they would first have to break through to the Yuan monarch realm. Clang! This sword slashed towards Li Zongjiu. Originally, this sword slashed towards Li Zongjiu's head. However, Li Zongjiu remained in his original position. When the sword slashed down, he only stretched out his hand and easily caught the sword. He had only used 2 fingers. How dare you dirty my shoes with such little strength? Li Zongjiu's tone was as cold as frost. It was as if the shoes were the most beloved thing in his life. However, it had been sullied in the end. This made people sigh. It seemed like every genius had their own hobbies. However, they didn't expect Li Zongjiu's hobbies to be this pair of shoes. You're courting death. Man Lang glared at Li Zongjiu in front of him. He wanted to pull out his sword and slash Li Zongjiu's head. At the same time, the tip of the sword rotated, wanting to cut off Li Zongjiu's 2 fingers. How dare he look down on Man Lang and stop his sword with 2 fingers. Clang! Li Zongjiu used a little strength and broke the sword. Barbarian Wolf's body flew backwards and rolled backwards. Li Zongjiu flicked his finger and flicked the broken sword in his hand. With a chi sound, one of Man Lang's legs was pierced through. Ah! Man Lang immediately held his leg and cried out loudly. This was simply an unexpected disaster. How could there be such a vicious and merciless brat who dared to hurt others in public? How dare you? Xiao Han's eyes stared at Li Zongjiu. He wanted to see something from Li Zongjiu's body. Because Li Zongjiu suddenly jumped out, there must be a reason. You're just a dog that bullies others. Not only did you disturb my mood, you even dirted my shoes. Not only did you dirted my shoes, you even wanted to silence me. I say, you really have guts. You even dare to silence me. If you have the ability, then come and catch me. Li Zongjiu placed his hands on his waist and shook the Imperial Alchemist token on his body. Just now, Li Zongjiu had directly hung up this token. In the darkness, it was extremely dazzling. However, this time, Li Zongjiu was a little too arrogant. This was because the Imperial Alchemist's position was only equivalent to a standard 4th grade alchemist. However, as the commander of the Imperial Guards, Xiao Han was a standard 3rd grade alchemist of the Imperial Court. If he wanted to catch Li Zongjiu, who was a standard 4th grade alchemist, it was naturally not a problem. Cough cough, your official position is not as high as his. He is a standard 3rd grade alchemist of the Imperial Court. Kuan Erishir could not help but step forward and say in a low voice. Is that so? Li Zongjiu was also a little surprised. It turned out that his token was useless. You intentionally hurt the deputy commander of the Right Army of the Imperial Guards and injured more than 20 of my guards. Today, even if you are an Imperial Alchemist, you can forget about leaving unscathed. Xiao Han said indifferently. However, his aura was gradually becoming colder. He stared at Li Zongjiu in front of him and slowly drew out the Sky Destroyer beside him. This sword was the Sky Destroyer that came from Sky Sword Pavilion. The aura of a Yuan King elite was gradually released from Xiao Han's body. Xiao Han's intuition told him that there was definitely something wrong with this kid in front of him. Today, he would definitely find out something about Li Zongjiu. However, this kid just had to bump into him. If he did not take care of him, then he would not be able to live up to his position as the commander of the Imperial Guards. Xiao Han was so angry that even Su Hong did not dare to step forward to stop him. Su Hong could not understand why Li Zongjiu would do this. Chapter 663. He would be asking for trouble if he offended Xiao Han at such a time. Xiao Han jumped down from the armored rhinoceros he was sitting on. He held the Sky Destroyer in his hand and condensed an extremely sharp sword edge. Such sword intent far surpassed that of the Southwest Sword sect back then. After all, the Southwest Sword Grandmaster was only at the Sword Grandmaster realm. Although he was about to enter the Yuan Monarch realm, he had not yet reached it. However, Xiao Han was a grade 5 Yuan Monarch realm expert. Although he was not considered a top expert in the palace, he had retired from the battlefield and fought everywhere. His body was stained with blood, which made Xiao Han's combat strength quite terrifying. In the palace, the Imperial Guard was only a relative decoration. If a true expert were to invade, there would naturally be an expert from the palace to deal with it. At that time, the Imperial Guard would at most be able to set up a formation. There were also similar situations. For example, if Emperor Xingyan wanted to visit somewhere, the Imperial Guards would be in charge of clearing the way and guarding the place. That was one of the duties of the Emperor. However, Xiao Han had to have his own strength and standards to be able to become the commander of the Imperial Guards. Now that he was facing Li Zongjiu, he did not hesitate to raise his sword and charge out. Li Zongjiu did not show the slightest bit of fear. He seemed to be prepared to stay where he was and wait for Xiao Han to attack. Just as Xiao Han was about to attack, a dignified voice rang out. "Stop!" Murong Yunzhan stepped forward. A dignified commander of the Imperial Guards was actually exchanging blows with an Imperial alchemist in public. How ridiculous was this? Li Zongjiu did not know how to retreat. Could it be that a dignified commander of the Imperial Guards actually wanted to arrest this Imperial alchemist and bring him to justice? Previously, it did not matter if he had beaten up some small soldiers. Now that Li Zongjiu was about to fight with Xiao Han, it would be extremely unwise for either side to suffer losses. Xiao Han was originally filled with anger and was ready to kill anyone who stood in his way. After all, he was still in a fit of anger. But now, he realized that the person who had stepped forward to mediate the fight was actually Prince Murong. Even if Xiao Han had 10 heads, he still wouldn't dare to go against Murong Yunzhan. That was a prince of the Shengyan dynasty, and he was just a subject. Even if he was enraged, he had to suppress the anger in his heart. This subject didn't know that Your Highness was here. Please forgive me for disturbing Your Highness. Xiao Han immediately knelt down on one knee before Murong Yunzhan. The surrounding Imperial Guards also knelt down. Li Zongjiu and the others did not need to perform the etiquette of an emperor and his subjects because Emperor Xingyan cherished and respected talents. Therefore, this move was very popular. After all, some people who were confident in their strength were inevitably arrogant and did not seek power. In the past, people wanted to use their power to oppress others. I am the emperor of a dynasty, so what if I ask you to kneel? Then, for some unknown reason, the dynasty was destroyed just like that. Currently, the Saint Flame Empire was unique and had started the tradition of respecting talents. Therefore, these people were highly valued by the Saint Flame Empire. Therefore, they did not dare to be disrespectful to the Saint Flame Empire. If there was anyone who did not respect the Saint Flame Empire, they would have already been killed. When you are given face, you have to accept it. You can't really take him seriously. However, Xiao Han was part of the system. Naturally, he had to kneel when he saw Prince Murong. The Imperial Guards were the same. Li Zongjiu, Commander Xiao Han is an old general of the dynasty. Give me some face and let this matter pass. Prince Murong said in a deep voice. As he spoke, Prince Murong came in front of Li Zongjiu and whispered again. There are so many people here. You won't embarrass me, right? Other people couldn't hear it, but Lan Kuan, who was at the side, heard it clearly. This was too fierce. Even Prince Murong had personally come to ask Li Zongjiu to give him face. In the imperial city, who else could do this? He was a prince of the Shengyan dynasty. Could it be that he needed others to give him face? However, Murong Yunzhan was worried that Li Zongjiu would not give him face. Therefore, he whispered to him as a greeting. After seeing that Li Zongjiu did not do anything excessive, Murong Yunzhan turned to look at Xiao Han. General Xiao Han, this is the 10,000 T manor. How can you rashly bring your troops here? Although Murong Yunzhan appeared to be angry, he was actually protecting Xiao Han. Li Zongjiu did not have the slightest restraint when he made his move. If Murong Yunzhan did not stop him in time, perhaps Li Zongjiu would have directly crippled Xiao Han's old bones. For someone with Li Zongjiu's personality, it was not impossible. Xiao Han stood up and put away the Sky Destroyer sword. He forcefully sucked in a few breaths of cold air before he managed to suppress the murderous intent in his heart. He thought to himself that if Prince Murong had not stopped him today, he would have made Li Zongjiu pay a painful price. How dare he use such a method to humiliate his imperial guards? Xiao Han would definitely not let Li Zongjiu off. This official was rash. This official will take his leave now. Xiao Han cupped his hands and said to Murong Yunzhan. Although he said goodbye, Xiao Han's scarlet eyes were still fixed on Li Zongjiu. At this moment, Xiao Han was certain that the death of his son, Xiao Tian's, was related to this person in front of him. However, he could not do anything in front of Murong Yunzhan. What he said before was right. This was the 10,000 T manor and not some other place. He could not act rashly. Withdraw. Xiao Han waved his hand and took the imperial guards away. Murong Yunzhan did not know that Xiao Han was so angry because of his son's death. If not, Xiao Han, as an old general of the imperial court, would definitely not be so rash and do such a thing. I've already helped you twice today. Murong Yunzhan walked in front of Li Zongjiu and left after saying those words. This made Li Zongjiu feel a little baffled. Of course, the baffling thing was Murong Yunzhan's attitude. Was this guy trying to curry favor with him, or was he trying to deal with him? Although Li Zongjiu did not care about many things and enemies, he still cared about Murong Yunzhan. Murong Yunzhan was the only person he cared about. Li Zongjiu remembered that in the future, Murong Yunzhan seemed to have done something incredible. If he remembered correctly, he had carved out a large piece of the Shengyan dynasty's territory and declared himself king. In terms of nature, it was a completely different situation. This Murong Yunzhan had become completely independent and established his own title. He was no longer a small prince, but a true king. As for how he did it, Li Zongjiu could not remember clearly. In any case, this kingdom would not take long. Because of Murong Yunzhan's loss, it would not take long for the Shengyan dynasty to recover. Chapter 664. Do you want me to bring that lass and hide for a while? Koan Erishur said in a deep voice. It was obvious that these people were watching them. If Su Sha didn't take the initiative to report them, then the only one they had to be careful of was the maid, Xiao Dai. If they hid, then the other party wouldn't be able to find them. However, there was a certain degree of danger in doing so. If the other party couldn't find Xiao Dai, they might use other methods to force Xiao Dai to appear. For example, kidnapping Xiao Dai's parents and family. No need. I've said it before. If we want revenge, then we have to cut the weeds and dig up the roots. Li Zongjiu shook his head and said. The real way to cut the weeds and dig up the roots wasn't to kill those who knew about it, but to kill those who had the ability to fight back. This was the real way to cut the weeds and dig up the roots. Koan Erishur knew that Li Zongjiu wasn't joking. However, the other party was after all the commander of the Imperial Guards. His strength wasn't ordinary. I'll go with you. In the face of such danger, Koan Erishur, as a follower, naturally had to rush to the front. Koan Erishur wasn't a woman or a child who needed others to protect him at all times. For Koan Erishur, since he recognized Li Zongjiu as his boss, then of course, he would face difficulties together with him. Otherwise, he wouldn't be called a brother. Li Zongjiu nodded his head. It was a little boring to kill all by himself. Moreover, Koan Arashi's strength still needed to be polished. If he didn't experience the wind, frost, rain, and snow, then how could he grow? Koan Erishur must grow in the wind and rain of blood. In the future, he would be able to stop the crisis of Koan Castle. In fact, Li Zongjiu was also paving the way for the future. The tragic fate of Koan Castle depended on whether Koan Erishur could reverse it. Li Zongjiu did not want to interfere too much. The two of you are really crazy. How can you be so high profile? After this is over, I will bring you out from the back of the mountain. These people might be hiding somewhere, waiting for you to appear and ambush you. Su Sha said with great concern. Because in Su Sha's heart, she had already regarded Li Zongjiu as her idol. Moreover, the experience between them made them friends. Su Sha didn't want Li Zongjiu to be caught by those people. As for Xiao Tian's death, it was only because he deserved to die. Yes. Have you packed my cakes? Li Zongjio asked. Su Sha immediately rolled her eyes. At this time, he was still thinking about food. Although she disliked it in her heart, she still ordered people to prepare the food and gave it to Li Zongjio. Although the lucky draw segment was interrupted, it still continued. However, this thing was not unexpected. The final winner was actually Murong Yunjan. Damn, I knew it. It must be predetermined. This kind of prize, it's better not to draw. Sigh, I am now completely disappointed in the Heavenly Pill Pavilion. Li Zongjio and Kun Erisher threw the invitation letter in their hands to the ground. Although everyone knew that the first prize was predetermined, no one dared to say it out loud. The two of them were really too young. However, because of their previous actions, coupled with Murong Yunjan's strange attitude, Li Zongjio did not blame him. He acted as if he did not hear anything and received the 6th grade elixir, Xianyang grass, as usual. It's actually Xianyang grass. This thing's power is huge. It's not something that ordinary people can enjoy. Li Zongjio said softly. Su Sha also secretly gave Li Zongjio a map. I still have other things to do. This is the route. In a while, you guys can take advantage of the chaos and leave. No one will pay attention to you guys. After Su Sha warned them, she glanced at Li Zongjio and Kun Erisher, then turned around and went to do her own things. Kun Erisher looked at the leaving Su Sha and nudged Li Zongjio's shoulder. Boss, this girl seems to be interested in you. Kun Erisher said. However, Li Zongjio only glanced at Kun Erisher indifferently. There are many people who are interested in me. Such shamelessness and such mysterious confidence made Kun Erisher roll his eyes. You really took a compliment seriously. If you take it seriously, it will be hard to recognize your true self. Li Zongjio, I advise you to release the Elder of Spirit Valley sect before dawn tomorrow. Otherwise, don't blame us for being ruthless. Elder Tsang Chu had already arrived in front of Li Zongjio and gave him an ultimatum. If he could not achieve it, then the final decision would be to use force. How much was the price I quoted before? 100 upper grade primordial stones, right? Didn't you tell this old man? Li Zongjio looked at the Nantian Pill King beside Tsang Chu. Now the price has increased to 1,000 upper grade primordial stones. If there is a next time, the price will depend on my mood. In fact, I advise you to pay as soon as possible. Otherwise, if you make everyone unhappy in the end, you will have to bear the consequences. Listening to Li Zongjio's tone, it seemed that he was doing it for their own good. Such impudence was an insult to Tsang Chu. You are just a little brat, how dare you negotiate with me, Tsang Chu? 1,000 upper grade primordial stones. You don't even know the value of primordial stones. Do you think you can take it out just because you said so? You are playing with fire. I, Tsang Chu, will wait for your consequences. Tsang Chu said coldly, but there was a hint of complacency in his eyes. At the very least, Li Zongjio had stayed in Myriad Tea Villa all night and did not leave. It was estimated that the Black Mountain Sword King had already succeeded. Based on Tsang Chu's understanding of the Black Mountain Sword King, there was basically nothing that the Black Mountain Sword King could not do. Even if it was a mountain of swords or a sea of flames, he could easily explore it. It was a piece of cake for the Black Mountain Sword King to go to this small house and rescue the people inside. After rescuing Elder Lu Wenshan, he could use force to destroy Li Zongjio. In addition, there were many voices outside. In fact, Li Zongjio did not have any secret technique of the 9 revolving cosmos needle. The 9 revolving cosmos needle had already been transferred out. Continuing to waste time here would only be a waste of time. In addition, there were quite a lot of things happening recently. It was said that there was a vast ancient burial land in the north, and many forces were concentrating their energy on it. Otherwise, how could Li Zongjio live so freely for so long? In the eyes of many people, Li Zongjio was just a person who had obtained a chance to catch his breath in between the cracks. If Li Zongjio were to be noticed by those behemoths, he would probably be crippled. Chapter 665. Tsang Chu naturally couldn't be bothered to continue arguing with Li Zongjio. He turned around and left. He would first make a trip to the Purple Pill Academy to see how the Black Mountain Sword King's battle was going. If it was successful, then he could begin to deal with Li Zongjio. After Tsang Chu left, Pei Si brought Shintu to Li Zongjio. Seeing Pei Si walking over, Koen Erisher couldn't help but straighten his back. Previously, he was already disrespectful to Pei Si, and even to Pei Si's father. Koen Erisher might as well be ruthless in front of Pei Si. He continued to put on a fierce appearance. Li Zongjio, I know that the item is in your hands. If you are interested in cooperating with my Chongqing Pavilion, then send a paper crane to find me. I'll be waiting for you. Don't worry, our Chongqing Pavilion has never been stingy. Pei Si waved his hand and Shintu, who was behind him, passed over a box. When the box was opened, there was a paper crane inside. However, it wasn't an ordinary paper crane. As long as one used yuan power to ignite it, the other side would receive the same signal. In fact, during the process of the paper crane being ignited, it could even communicate with each other. It was a small yuan tool, a functional type. After Pei Si finished speaking, he turned around and left very coldly. He didn't mention a word about what happened before. This kid is really good. He can endure so well. He will definitely become a big disaster in the future. Koen Erisher looked at Pei Si and couldn't help but say. The more patient a person was, the more successful he would be in the future. He's just a piece of trash. Disaster my ass. Li Zongjio didn't put him in his eyes at all. If you like this thing, you can keep it. In his previous life, Li Zongjio had seen all kinds of demons and encountered all kinds of enemies. Why would he care about such a small thing? Wait until you sit in your father's position, then talk to Li Zongjio and talk business with Li Zongjio. It was too early for Pei Si now. No, if I keep this thing, what if he can find me at any time? Koen Erisher also directly threw the box to the side. But after thinking about it, the box seemed to be pretty, so he directly poured the contents of the box on the ground and took the box away. As for the kite that was poured on the ground, it wasn't long before it was trampled into a pile of waste paper and directly swept into the trash can. Li Zongjio and Koen Arashi's departure didn't attract much attention. However, there was a group of people who had been monitoring Li Zongjio and the others' every move from the beginning. Now that Li Zongjio and the others left the 10,000 Mountain Villa, they immediately rushed to spread the news. Somewhere in the city, Xiao Han, who was dressed in martial attire, had already changed into a set of light clothes. There was also a tall and straight man standing beside her. This man was the deputy commander of the City Guard Corps, Guan Shifei. Old Guan, help me this time. I promise to recommend you to the third prince to be the next commander. Xiao Han said in a loud voice. His face was expressionless, but Guan Shifei's face already revealed a smile. According to Xiao Han's temper, he wouldn't easily make such a promise. Among the many generals of the Shengyan dynasty, Xiao Han's prestige was quite good. Although he had now retired from the front line, most of the important positions now were basically retired from the front line. With the support of Xiao Han and the third prince adding fuel to the fire, Guan Shifei would immediately become the best candidate to be the commander. Even in his dreams, he had never thought that such a good thing would happen. Guan Shifei was originally patrolling and training his soldiers. Then, he directly received a summons from Xiao Han. Immediately, Guan Shifei felt that his opportunity had come. He had been waiting for this opportunity. When he knew that Xiao Han was preparing to deal with an enemy, and that he was going to do it secretly in the city, he immediately beamed with joy. Wasn't this what he was best at? Immediately, he arranged the soldiers in formation. First, he ordered some people in official uniforms to block off the nearby roads. Other than that, the rest of the soldiers changed into casual clothes within the blockade. Anyway, this was his jurisdiction. As long as this matter was successful, it wouldn't be a problem for him to fabricate the story in the end. By the way, General Xiao, who are we going to deal with? Guan Shifei couldn't help but ask. Up until now, Xiao Han hadn't revealed any more information. However, with so many promises and conditions, the goal of this mission naturally wouldn't be simple. Li Zongjiu. Between the lines, there was a monstrous murderous aura. Xiao Han was certain that his son was killed by Li Zongjiu. Even if he wasn't, he must have had something to do with it. Now that things had come to this, Xiao Han didn't care what the reason was. The only thing he had to do was to kill his enemy with his own hands. Li Zongjiu. Guan Shifei's pupils shrank, but he didn't show it. His son, Guan Houyang, who was beside him, was even more furious. Between his teeth, there was a cold light. Li Zongjiu. I didn't expect it to be that guy. Today, I will definitely not let go of this opportunity. Guan Houyang had been wanting to kill Li Zongjiu for a long time. Originally, he wanted to deal with Wang Ding of the Tusk Battalion, however, later on, he heard that there was a strange disease that was directly contagious in the area under Wang Ding's jurisdiction. He was happy to see them destroy themselves and let them enjoy this strange infectious disease. Therefore, he didn't make a move for the time being. It wasn't easy for him to put this matter aside for a period of time. Now that he heard Li Zongjiu's name, Guan Houyang was about to lose his patience. General, that Li Zongjiu duo is walking towards us. Although they had Guan Shifei's troops as cover, this kind of thing had to be done far away from the main streets. Moreover, it was best to control the area in a remote area so that they could destroy the corpses without anyone noticing. Therefore, Xiao Han had ordered people to set up an ambush on the road. It would be best if they could directly lure Li Zongjiu over. However, they didn't expect that Li Zongjiu would actually walk directly towards them. This is the wild forest on the outskirts of the city. I was worried that this kid wouldn't come. I've already set up an inescapable net in this forest. Once that kid enters, he will definitely die. Guan Shifei said coldly. In order to deal with Li Zongjiu, they had directly set up most of their forces in this wild forest. There were hundreds of archers on the treetops and dozens of trenches underground. Once they took action, these people would truly be an inescapable net that would pounce on Li Zongjiu. Even if he had wings, he wouldn't be able to escape. Moreover, there were two experts, Guan Shifei and Xiao Han, here. Wouldn't it be a piece of cake to deal with Li Zongjiu? Did you bring your flying roar? Xiao Han asked. Chapter 667. After that, there were more than a dozen loud bangs on the ground. Then, a figure appeared, holding a chilling blade light in his hand. However, they were all blocked by Kun Erishur alone. When he attacked, Lon Kun didn't hold back because these people had all come to take their lives. In the dark night, the Kun wing spear in Kun Arashi's hand was like a deadly lightning. It kept flashing in the dark night, and every time it flashed, a row of figures would fall. Li Zongjiu calmly walked toward Xiao Han. The thunder-blade appeared in his hand. As the pinnacle of craftsmanship in the bright lightning craftsman workshop, losing this blade was like losing half of their life's work. In an instant, its power was greatly reduced. I'll kill you with my own hands. Xiao Han put away the grief and indignation in his heart and carefully put away the head. When he looked at Li Zongjiu, his cold eyes were filled with murderous intent. By now, Xiao Han had already calmed down the emotions in his heart. Anger would make people lose their minds. No matter what the situation was, it was necessary to maintain absolute calmness. The heaven-destroying sword appeared in his hand. The aura on Xiao Han's body was like a piece of thousand-year-old ice, and it was constantly releasing a terrifying chill toward Li Zongjiu. The grass under his feet was also covered with frost. However, when the chill rushed to Li Zongjiu's feet, it was easily blocked. "General, I'll help you." Guan Shifei growled and unsheathed the long blade in his hand. Surprisingly, it was a powerful yuan item. The blade was flickering with raging flames. It was a powerful raging flame long saber. Since things had already come to this point, it was already too late for them to back down. He must help Xiao Han kill Li Zongjiu. This was the most important thing. Xiao Han ignored Guan Shifei. Now that he was facing Li Zongjiu, he must kill him. Cold light flying blade sword. The yuan force in his body circulated, and the heaven-destroying sword emitted a terrifying light. Under this light, Guan Shifei, who was standing behind him, could not help but take a few steps back. What a powerful sword aura! Although Guan Shifei was also a grade 1 yuan monarch, he simply couldn't get close to Xiao Han's aura. Instead, he was forced to retreat. As he retreated, Xiao Han's sword aura had already rushed in front of Li Zongjiu. As expected of someone who had experienced hundreds of battles. After being honed on the battlefield, his level of strength was indeed different. Just this ordinary sword strike alone was enough to make Li Zongjiu feel a sense of urgency. However, it was only a sliver. With a slight sway of his body, he dodged the attack. Then, Li Zongjiu slashed down with his thunder-blade. Boom! The surging blade aura rushed towards Xiao Han like 10,000 galloping horses. Xiao Han had not expected Li Zongjiu to be able to display such a domineering power. Xiao Han held the sword with both hands and slashed the blade aura apart. However, the lightning energy that permeated the air could not help but adhere to his body. It seemed to become a chaotic lightning bolt, which immediately made Xiao Han feel an immense pressure. The yuan force in his body vibrated, immediately suppressing the terrifying lightning energy. Suppress. Xiao Han held the sword with one hand and placed the other hand on his chest. Then, he made a few consecutive hand seals. Finally, the power was mixed in his hand and suddenly shot forward. Boom! Suddenly, a ray of icy light rushed out and swept towards Li Zongjiu. Wherever the light passed, a frost power would appear on the inside. When Tsang Chu and the rest, who were watching the battle from a distance, saw this finger seal, their eyes were filled with astonishment. This frost finger is domineering and fast. That kid may not be able to dodge it. Tsang Chu could not help but comment. However, before this frost finger could reach Li Zongjiu, it was burned to a crisp by a flame. One had to know that Li Zongjiu was protected by his primordial fire. It was impossible for ordinary frigid air to get close to him. Li Zongjiu's obsidian fire was so strong that it could easily break through Xiao Han's frigid ice. 1,000 feet frost sword art. The Sky Destroyer sword vibrated with frost energy. This move, frost energy destroying the heavens, was extremely terrifying in the eyes of anyone. It was as if there was a terrifying force in the sky that was attracted to it. The entire forest was filled with cold air. Even the movements of Lan Kuan's hands involuntarily paused for a moment. It was as if he was affected by this wisp of cold air. However, Lan Kuan had already broken through the defenses of over 100 people and seriously injured them on the ground. A portion of them had even died. He did not show any mercy. Since they were already enemies, there was no need for him to be polite. Li Zongjiu also raised the thunder beheading blade in his hand. He was more than 10 meters away from Xiao Han. As he slashed down, a shocking lightning blade aura blasted out. Boom! Xiao Han's sword aura and Li Zongjiu's lightning blade aura collided. In an instant, a terrifying wave of energy spread out. Boom! The energy that scattered in all directions directly shattered the trees in the surroundings. The thick and sturdy trees were shaken by the collision of the two forces. Some of the weaker soldiers were directly sent flying. With a plop, they rolled on the ground and fell to the ground. Father? Guan Houliang was shielded behind Guan Shifei. Looking at the situation in front of him that was filled with dust, coupled with the wave of energy from before, if Guan Shifei had not blocked in front of him, Guan Houliang would have been sent flying and knocked unconscious on the ground. The current situation made Guan Houliang a little nervous. He had never imagined that Li Zongjiu would be able to fight Xiao Han to a standstill. Shu, be careful. Guan Shifei could not help but say. When he looked again, he could vaguely see a figure standing in the fog. When he saw the figure, a smile appeared on Guan Shifei's face. This was because the figure standing in front of him was Xiao Han. However, in the next moment, Guan Shifei's smile froze. A cold light flashed past, and the head of the standing figure was chopped off and sent flying. Bang! Blood gushed out from the neck like a fountain. What? Guan Shifei's eyes widened when he saw this scene. The dust dispersed, and the head that was sent flying fell at Guan Shifei's feet. Xiao Han's ferocious eyes were staring at Guan Shifei. Son, run! Guan Shifei's first reaction was to tell Guan Houliang to leave this place as soon as possible. At the same time, he slapped Guan Houliang, who had not yet reacted, and sent him flying. Swoosh! Li Zongjiu's thunder/blade followed. Just as Guan Houliang's body was sent flying, he was split in half. He watched helplessly as his son was split into two halves in midair. Guan Shifei's heart was already blank. He could not believe his eyes. It was as if time had stopped at this moment. Chapter 668. Guan Shifei turned his head slightly, intending to look for Li Zongjiu to reason with him. However, when he turned his head, he saw a cold light flashing towards his head. Bang! Another headless corpse fell to the ground. After the head rolled away, fresh blood gushed out like a fountain. Li Zongjiu sheathed his sword and stood up. He looked around. Many people had already seen the scene. They saw Guan Shifei and Guan Houliang die under Li Zongjiu's sword in an instant. When they saw this scene, they were all stunned. They could not believe what they had just seen. At this moment, their commander was dead. Moreover, they were all traveling in plain clothes. They were not carrying out official duties at all. Even the two flying roars that were in preparation did not have time to be deployed. After killing half of them, these people were preparing to escape. However, at this moment, a group of armored soldiers suddenly appeared from all directions. He directly captured all those people who were about to escape. Take down all these people who are plotting a rebellion. Wang Ding's figure appeared. When he saw this scene, he could not help but smile. The light of his sword in the dark night was particularly bright. Sir, I am also a city guard. I have a waste token. How dare you impersonate a city guard? Execute them. Wang Ding directly slashed out with his sword, killing all the people who wanted to show their identity. When these people saw this, they panicked and hurriedly threw down the weapons in their hands. They did not dare to resist anymore. Wang Ding was the battalion commander of the Tusk Battalion. This time, under the command of Li Zongjiu, he seemed to have made a breakthrough in this strange case. These people in front of him were obviously plotting a rebellion. If they had not discovered it early, it would have led to a disaster. As for the evidence of the rebellion, it wasn't difficult to sort it out. Previously, he had already received Li Zongjiu's report, so he quickly rushed over. When he arrived, he directly captured some of the deputy battalion commanders of the other battalions. With so many people gathered here and dressed in plain clothes, if this wasn't treason, then what else could it be? Just from this point alone, it was already a capital offense. As the deputy commander of the army, he actually allowed his subordinates to disguise themselves and then carry out the activities of the majority of the people. It was very difficult to explain and get rid of him. This time, Wang Ding also directly captured these people. At the same time, he also obtained 2 flying roars. Good boy, so you want to sell firearms. When Wang Ding saw the 2 flying roars, an idea had already formed in his mind. As for Li Zongjiu and Kun Erisher, naturally, they acted as if they did not see anything. When there were so many people, their figures quietly retreated. The people who were watching this scene from afar all had their mouths agape. Li Zongjiu is really courageous, Pei Si thought to himself. Just as Pei Si was surprised by Li Zongjiu's courage, he inexplicably felt a trace of threat. When he turned around, he saw an additional figure behind him. Li Zongjiu was also looking at Pei Si very calmly. The thunder-slashing blade in his hand was also covered in a trace of blood. Shen Tu, who was following beside him, could not help but stand up. What are you trying to do? Shen Tu was obviously very nervous. They had been observing everything in front of them in secret and had been very careful to hide their presence. However, Li Zongjiu was able to find them so accurately. This clearly meant that they had been discovered by Li Zongjiu long ago. At this moment, he had come rashly. There must be a reason behind it. Even Pei Si could not help but feel nervous. At this moment, when he saw Li Zongjiu so close to him, he could not understand what Li Zongjiu wanted to do. You're called Pei Si, right? In fact, I didn't want to kill you, but there's no other way. Who asked you to bump into me? Li Zongjiu said. Pei Si and Shen Tu were instantly shocked. Could it be that Li Zongjiu was really going to kill them? In the blink of an eye. Li Zongjiu's hand was already stretched out like the scythe of the Grim Reaper, grabbing Pei Si's and Shen Tu's necks. Die! Crack! Crack! Their necks were instantly broken. In front of Li Zongjiu, they were like 2 helpless chickens. Previously, Pei Si was also thinking about how he should deal with Li Zongjiu. In Pei Si's opinion, with his strength, dealing with Li Zongjiu would not be difficult. Although Li Zongjiu's strength might be able to resist, in front of Pei Si, he would only be defeated. However, when the real thing happened, Pei Si realized how terrifying the gap between him and Li Zongjiu was. At the moment when Pei Si's neck was broken, he did not even have time to react before Li Zongjiu took away his life. The dignified young pavilion master of Changxing Pavilion was killed in the wilderness just like that. After casually throwing the 2 corpses on the ground, Li Zongjiu stood on the treetop and looked down. There was not the slightest fluctuation in his eyes. After dealing with these 2 people, he left with peace of mind. Hey, where did you go just now? When Kun Erisher saw Li Zongjiu appear, he was curious. When he saw Wang Ding and the others appear, he thought that this matter was going to be blown out of proportion. However, after receiving Li Zongjiu's notice, he quickly retreated since these people were on his side. However, Li Zongjiu's footsteps were slightly slower. I dealt with some matters. Li Zongjiu said indifferently. Kun Erisher did not ask about the details. What happened tonight? It's all settled. Go back and refine the fire seed. Master it as soon as possible. At the Dark Horse Elixir gathering, it will be easy. Li Zongjiu said. In this Dark Horse Pill meeting, there were a group of extremely vicious people. These unorthodox alchemists would do anything in order to win. Don't worry. Kun Erisher said. Kun Erisher was also very fond of the residual sun fire. He could not wait to refine it. After that, Li Zongjiu left. The 2 corpses were placed on the ground quietly. Even their eyes were wide open, as if they died with grievances. 2 figures emerged from the darkness and arrived in front of the 2 corpses. What happened? Isn't this Pei Si from Changxing Pavilion? When Sang Chu saw this scene, his heart skipped a beat. This Pei Si brat was actually killed by someone. Not good. After seeing this scene, South Heaven Elixir King's mind went blank. He instantly realized that something was wrong. This was because their aura had been left behind at the scene. Who is it? Another group of experts came. These people were wearing secret armor and had a purple gold saber at their waist. Top secret guards. Chapter 669. On the waists of these top secret guards was a plate with the word secret written on it. In addition, the top secret guards also wore masks on their faces. The masks were airtight. Outsiders couldn't see the secret guards' faces, but the secret guards could see their faces through the masks. When the secret guards arrived, both of them were shocked. Even Tsang Chu and Nantian Pil King were taken aback. They could not help but become vigilant. One should know that these secret guards were not that simple. As a secret troop specially formed by the Saint Flame dynasty, their purpose was to help the Saint Flame dynasty deal with some difficult and complicated cases. The appearance of the three secret guards had already made Tsang Chu and Nantian Pil King feel pressured. Moreover, the rising price and the two corpses on the ground made them unable to explain themselves. The death of these two people has nothing to do with us. Tsang Chu said indifferently. So what if you're the secret guards? I'm the elder of the Spirit Valley sect. Without solid evidence, even if you're the secret guards, you won't be able to capture me. Whether it's true or not, you'll know once you come with us. One of the secret guards said indifferently. Tsang Chu's eyes were filled with coldness after hearing the guard's words. Humph, even if you're the secret guards, you won't be able to take me away. I'm the elder of the Spirit Valley sect. Tsang Chu said confidently. At the same time, he was surprised that these people came so quickly. Moreover, they came at this time. These secret guards really knew how to cause trouble. Tsang Chu himself felt that it was quite troublesome. However, he was the elder of the Spirit Valley sect after all. He was also a 6th-grade alchemist. His aura was not weak at all. If it was an ordinary person in front of these secret guards, they would have already admitted defeat. Even Nantian Dan Wang, who was behind him, did not have the intention to resist. After all, this matter had nothing to do with him. He would know after a little investigation. However, it was impossible for Tsang Chu to follow these top secret guards. Otherwise, if Tsang Chu's reputation were to spread, everyone in the world would laugh at Tsang Chu for being captured by these top secret guards. If you refuse to cooperate, then don't blame us for offending you. As he spoke, the top secret guard slowly drew out the long saber in his hand. 3 pairs of incorporeal eyes stared at Tsang Chu and landed on his body. With just the two of you? You want to take me down? Tsang Chu was also a stubborn person. As an elder of Spirit Valley sect, he was highly respected within the sect. If he was captured by these secret guards, wouldn't he become a prisoner? This made Tsang Chu quite resistant in his heart. Capture. Under the command of the top secret guard, the 3 of them drew their blades simultaneously. The dazzling blade energy was like a cage that descended from the sky, instantly suppressing Tsang Chu who was in front of them. Boom! Tsang Chu's body also released terrifying flames to fight against the 3 golden saber cheese in front of him. South Heaven Elixir King was shocked when he saw the 3 of them fighting. What should he do now? Everyone, please calm down. Please stop. Let's talk things over. South Heaven Elixir King said. However, Nantian Dan King's words were useless in front of these 4 people. No one even paid attention to him. Nantian Dan King was the king of this region, but today, he deeply felt that his status was so low that no one bothered to pay attention to him. After a fierce battle, Tsang Chu also took the time to release a signal and quickly flew towards the sky. Boom! Hey Shan, come and save me! Tsang Chu roared to the sky. After all, he was only an alchemist. Under the siege of the 3 top secret guards who were also Yuan monarchs, he still showed signs of defeat. This was because the 3 top secret guards showed mercy. After all, Tsang Chu's strength was not simple. If he wanted to fight to the death, he had to be careful. These top-secret guards were best at exhausting the enemy first. Only in this way could they steadily take down the enemy and successfully complete the task. This was also the accumulation of years of experience. However, there was no response to Tsang Chu's distress signal. At this moment, the Black Mountain Sword King, who was hiding in an inn in the city, was also doing his best to heal his injuries. He did not even dare to stay in a luxurious inn. It was just a very ordinary inn. And just as the Black Mountain Sword King was healing himself, he saw this distress signal. The corners of the Black Mountain Sword King's mouth suddenly curved into a bitter smile. "Old Tsang, it's not that I don't want to save you, but I can't even save myself." The moment the Black Mountain Sword King was distracted, he spat out a mouthful of blood onto the bed. He looked extremely miserable. Do Ling, who had entered a frenzied state, seemed to like killing and torturing her opponents very much. Therefore, the Black Mountain Sword King was subjected to the brutal attacks of his opponent. This brutal attack caused the Black Mountain Sword King to suffer a considerable amount of pain. Now, his body was in a mess. If he did not recuperate as soon as possible, he would die. If that was the case, then his cultivation would most likely be crippled. Therefore, when the Black Mountain Sword King saw the distress signal from Tsang Chu, he could only pretend that he did not see it. "In any case, you'd better pray for yourself." The Black Mountain Sword King waved his hand and closed the window. Then, he continued to immerse himself in the recovery of his injuries. Tsang Chu, who did not get a response, finally fell to the ground with a bang under the attack of the 5 top-secret guards. "Please come with us." Originally, there were only 3 of them. However, 2 more people joined the fray. They seemed to be even more ruthless. When these ruthless people appeared, Tsang Chu was defeated even faster. As for Nantian Dan King, he had never thought of running away from the beginning. Escape? Where could he escape to? Even Tsang Chu was only struggling in his death throes. You are very good, very good. I, Tsang Chu, will remember you." Tsang Chu was in a sorry state. He never thought that he, an elder of the Spirit Valley sect, would be captured and reduced to a prisoner. Tsang Chu could not believe that such a situation had occurred. As soon as he finished speaking, a heavy helmet was placed on Tsang Chu's head with a clang. Chapter 670. 10,000 T Villa. Xiao Dai was also very nervous in this environment. She finally got through this situation safely. When she saw the group of people rushing in, Xiao Dai's heart was also quite nervous. She was afraid that she would be caught by these people if she was not careful. If that happened, the consequences would be really unimaginable. However, Li Zhongjiu stepped forward bravely and directly beat these people away. This was also very touching for Xiao Dai. However, Zhuangying quickly brought Xiao Dai over. After all, in this 10,000 T villa, it was not easy to escape from Zhuangying's eyes. What happened tonight had already made Zhuangying quite frightened. Just tonight in this 10,000 T villa, there were already several murder cases. Just the death of Xiao Tian's alone was enough to give Zhuangying a headache. "Tell me the truth. What is going on?" Zhuangying said faintly. He did not torture Xiao Dai. As the master of this manor, he still had this bit of dignity. However, Xiao Dai looked very nervous. Facing Zhuangying's interrogation, Xiao Dai also told him some things. However, this was only a part of the story. Xiao Tian's tried to do something to her. Then, she blacked out. She did not know what happened after that until she woke up. These words were directly said by Su Sha to Xiao Dai before she woke up. In order to avoid being exposed in the future, it would be more convincing. Zhuangying naturally knew that this matter was not so simple. However, he also knew that Xiao Dai was just a victim in this whole matter. After all, she was a member of his villa. Therefore, Zhuang Ying did not make things difficult for her. You can leave first. Zhuang Yin rubbed his forehead. This matter was complicated and confusing. Just as Zhuang Ying was deep in thought, someone hurriedly came to report. The appearance of these major events caused Zhuang Ying's head to feel as though it was about to explode. What? You said that Xiao Han is dead. Smuggling firearms. He was caught red-handed by the city guards. The young master of the Pavilion of Longevity, Pei Si, and his guards were killed as well. The murderer is Elder Tsang Chu of Spirit Valley sect. Yes, master. Tsang Chu and Pil King Nantian have been taken away by the secret guards. The scout below reported. Even Zhuang Ying himself was quite shocked. How could this be? Even the top secret imperial bodyguards have been mobilized. Fuck. The corner of Zhuang Ying's mouth twitched. Fortunately, this matter didn't happen in his 10,000 T villa. If it happened in his 10,000 T villa, he would be in big trouble. If he couldn't explain it clearly, everything would be over. Even though Zhuang Ying had no idea what was going on right now. However, Zhuang Ying's intuition told him that the mastermind behind all of this was definitely not simple. Even the top secret bodyguard was part of the plan. Could it be that the battle between the princes has escalated to such a level? Even the top secret guards have been dispatched. The world is about to change. Zhuang Ying immediately announced that he wasn't feeling well and needed more rest. He wouldn't be receiving any guests in the 10,000 T villa. Li Zongjiu and Kun Erisher returned to their own places safe and sound. Kun Erisher returned to the Heavenly Star Medicine Mansion to refine the fire seed in his hand. After all, Lon Kun didn't have his own house. The main reason was that he couldn't afford it. Or it could be said that Lon Kun's needs in this aspect weren't that great. If he really needed it, he could be ruthless enough to buy a small thatched hut. Although Li Zongjiu had guessed in his heart that someone would definitely launch a sneak attack on the manor tonight, he had directly set up the Yuan rune formation. However, when Li Zongjiu returned to the manor, he immediately discovered that the manor had been destroyed to the point where it was unbearable to look at. It was as though all that was missing was the final push to directly demolish and rebuild it. What's going on? Did the army invade? Li Zongjiu walked in. Du Lieni was taking care of the Howling Moon Wolf King. Beside her, Ying Hu was sitting on the ground, trying his best to recover from his injuries. The scene was also a mess. It seemed like a battle of the century had happened. Young master, you're back. Du Lieni said in surprise. She had killed her enemy tonight. Du Lieni felt like she had come back from the dead. She didn't dare to imagine that this day would come so quickly. However, the consequences were very serious. Du Lieni was also worried that Li Zongjiu and Ying Hu wouldn't be able to leave the 10,000 T villa safely. If Xiao Tian's father came to cause trouble, it would be very dangerous. As the commander of the Imperial Guards, his strength was already terrifyingly strong. Fortunately, Li Zongjiu returned safe and sound. Yes, I'm back. Move aside. Li Zongjiu came to the front of the Howling Moon Wolf King and injected Yuan energy into its body. It immediately helped the Howling Moon Wolf King to recover its strength. It's just a little shock. It's not a big deal. However, when he checked the condition of Ying Hu's body, Li Zongjiu's face darkened. He frowned deeply. Young master. You're back. Ying Hu opened its eyes and looked at Li Zongjiu. When it spoke, a trace of blood flowed out from the corner of its mouth. Don't move. The Yuan bead in your body is broken. It's good that you're able to hold on until now. Li Zongjiu didn't say anything and sat down cross-legged. Beside him, Dou Ling's face also gradually darkened. For those who cultivated Yuan power, a broken Yuan pearl was almost a fatal injury. Following the breaking of the Yuan pearl, their lifetime of cultivation would gradually dissipate. It would flow away bit by bit, and one wouldn't even have the means to stop it. Dou Ling also knew that Ing Hu's situation wasn't optimistic. However, no one could cure the broken yuan bead. Young master. Don't waste your energy, shut up. Li Zongjio said indifferently. Both of his palms suddenly slapped on Ing Hu's back. Powerful yuan energy instantly penetrated and poured into it. Obsidian fire. The obsidian fire instantly appeared on Ing Hu's yuan bead. The terrifying burning power caused the shadow fox to feel great pain. Hiss. Ing Hu's entire body seemed to be twitching. You want to refine his yuan bead? Chapter 671. Dou Ling was shocked when she saw this. She found Li Zongjio's actions unbelievable. Could it be that Li Zongjio was such an evil person? He had personally nurtured the shadow fox so that he could take advantage of the moment when the shadow fox origin bead shattered and devour the origin bead of the shadow fox. If that was the case, he was truly evil. Dou Ling must be a person who knew how to use yuan qi to prevent such a thing from happening. However, Li Zongjio did not pay attention to Dou Ling. He continued to incinerate the shadow fox's body with the obsidian fire. Boom! The obsidian fire general took a long time to refine the shadow fox's origin bead. It was an extremely strenuous process. Dou Ling originally thought that Li Zongjio was up to something evil. However, when she saw Li Zongjio's serious expression and the fact that Li Zongjio was using even more yuan qi to protect the shadow fox's body during the refining process, she did not want the shadow fox to suffer too much pain. What's going on? Dou Ling's gaze fell on the shadow fox's body. Unlike its previous weak aura, the shadow fox's aura was gradually recovering. Previously, the shadow fox was like a deflating balloon that was riddled with holes. Now, the shadow fox was like a yuan qi ball that was rapidly gathering energy. At this moment, the shadow fox's strength was rapidly gathering. Seeing this scene, Dou Ling was even more shocked. Just a moment ago, this shadow fox was already on the verge of death. However, it was pulled back from the brink of death. This was simply a miracle. Oh my God, Dou Ling opened her mouth in shock. The shadow fox, which was on the verge of death, opened its eyes once again. The light in its eyes was unprecedentedly strong. Go and break through. Li Zongjio withdrew his hand. At this moment, the yuan bead within the shadow fox's body was filled with the power of the black glorious fire and was continuously gathering energy. When Ing Hu opened his eyes again, he was clearly in an extremely excited state. Thank you, young master. Ing Hu immediately thanked Li Zongjio, but quickly ran away. Just as Li Zongjio had said, Ing Hu needed to enter the state of breakthrough immediately. Otherwise, this feeling would quickly pass. At that time, Ing Hu would lose more than he gained. It was not easy for him to accumulate so much power, which made Ing Hu feel quite shocked. In addition to the excitement in his heart, he also immediately threw himself into this nervous state of cultivation. Li Zongjio sat cross-legged on the spot. After consuming an elixir, he immediately began to recover his yuan power. Even his mental energy was greatly depleted. This action seemed simple, but if one did not have 1,000 years of cultivation, one would not dare to do it. This was because the slightest carelessness could easily burn a person to death. At that time, not to mention saving a person, even the corpse would not be found. Who did this tonight? Dou Ling was still immersed in Li Zongjio's miraculous healing skills. Even in her family, she had never seen anyone with such skills. The yuan bead was so severely damaged, but he was actually able to bring it back from the dead and repair it. This terrifying skill was really unbelievable. When she heard Li Zongjio's question, she was a little dazed. Who did it? I don't remember clearly. Dou Ling shook her head. However, Du Lieni, who was standing at the side, clearly saw the situation at that time. In the end, she swallowed her saliva and recounted everything that had happened. Ha! At this moment, even Li Zongjiu looked at Dou Ling with a face of disbelief. He did not expect this seemingly weak girl to have such a crazy side. And Dou Ling also turned her head away in embarrassment. I already said before, I can't see blood, Dou Ling said. It turned out that more than half of the White Deer Manor was destroyed by Dou Ling. You must never see blood again in the future. Li Zongjiu said helplessly. Even if he, Li Zongjiu, went to kill someone or fight, he would not directly destroy someone's house. How could he do this? Wouldn't it be very embarrassing? Li Zongjiu stretched out his hand and grabbed the air. It was invisible to the naked eye, but he had already caught a strand of aura in his hand. Relying on the strand of aura in his hand, Li Zongjiu used his mental strength to sense and search the city. How could he let this person leave alive when he dared to break into Li Zongjiu's house? Du Lieni, go find Tai Fai and ask him to clean up my manor and find someone to renovate it. Yes, young master. Du Lieni replied. You continue to look after the house, I'll be back soon. Li Zongjiu said. His figure also disappeared from the city in an instant. At this moment, the Sacred Flame Royal City could be said to not have a peaceful night. The movements of the army and the spread of information were everywhere. Although it was not visible on the surface, the undercurrent was surging in the dark. However, no matter how big the undercurrent was, it could not overturn the Sacred Flame Royal City. No matter how big the undercurrent was, it could only destroy those who were in the middle of it. As for the Sacred Flame Royal City, it would not be harmed at all. The sky gradually brightened. The Black Mountain Sword King, who was hiding in an inn, also opened his eyes. After a night of cultivation and adjustment, he finally stabilized the injuries in his body. When my strength recovers, I'll definitely gather all my strength and completely destroy this White Deer Manor of yours. The Black Mountain Sword King's eyes were filled with monstrous killing intent. He was a dignified Sword King, what kind of tragic scene had he not experienced? But when had he ever suffered such humiliation, being beaten to the point of fleeing in a sorry state? This was a deep hatred, so he must take revenge. Blood for blood. If you hurt me once, I will kill your whole family. Seeing that his bed was already soaked in his own blood, the hatred and murderous intent in his heart became even denser. I'm afraid you won't have that chance. Li Zongjiu said indifferently as he rubbed his fingernails. His figure appeared from the corner of the room. Chapter 672. Li Zongjiu's voice suddenly came from the room. The Black Mountain Sword King was immediately horrified. The Black Mountain Sword King immediately grabbed his long sword and stared at the figure in front of him. Who are you? How dare you plot against this Sword King? The Black Mountain Sword King suddenly said in a cold voice. Although he was now in a state of injury, he was still a Sword King. His momentum was still there, extremely strong. He stared at the person in front of him. When he saw Li Zongjiu's appearance, the Black Mountain Sword King was a little surprised, because the person who came was younger than he imagined. He was clearly a child. These days, even children were so arrogant. Obviously, the Black Mountain Sword King was also surprised by this scene. Although he was now in a state of injury, it was not a simple matter to take his head. There was no need to send a child. The Black Mountain Sword King mistakenly thought that the person in front of him should be sent by his former enemies. Strong as the Black Mountain Sword King, he also had his own enemies, and the strength of his enemies should not be underestimated. Your mouth is quite smelly. Li Zongjiu's fingernails were a little longer recently, and he took the time to sharpen them. He looked at the Black Mountain Sword King in front of him. Are you the one who broke into my manor? Li Zongjiu made the final confirmation. If he accidentally killed the wrong person, wouldn't it be awkward? So it was better to clarify the situation first. Your manner. The Black Mountain Sword King was stunned. Where did this guy come from? He was still trying to guess Li Zongjiu's identity. If he had broken into the manor, the only thing the Black Mountain Sword King could recall was the terrifying scene from last night. You are that Li Zongjiu. The Black Mountain Sword King looked at Li Zongjiu. The Black Mountain Sword King was surprised by how Yi Shiwen found him. However, He Kuai also showed a smile. Since you took the initiative to come to me, you can't blame me. My luck is too good. The Black Mountain Sword King laughed coldly. The sword in the Black Mountain Sword King's hand trembled. At this moment, his confidence was greatly boosted. What else was there to say? First, he had to take Li Zongjiu's head. Then, he would gather his men and destroy White Deer Manor. The Black Mountain Sword King also carefully thought about the previous matter. Everything was because of that damned Lu Wenshan. If he had left earlier, then there wouldn't have been any later matters. Now he was in such a state, and even consumed a thunder talisman to escape. For the Black Mountain Sword King, this was an extremely disadvantageous situation. The Black Mountain Sword King's long sword moved, immediately releasing a terrifying aura, directly chopping towards Li Zongjiu's head. The sharp sword qi seemed to have been honed in the sea, so it could have such a terrifying sword qi at this moment. Boom! The sword qi suddenly set off a fierce wind. It quickly rushed in front of Li Zongjiu, and then stopped. Whoosh! It seemed that the fierce wind had turned into nothingness at this moment. Li Zongjiu stood quietly, without moving. Between his two fingers was the opponent's long sword. Li Zongjiu didn't seem to use the slightest strength, but at this moment, the Black Mountain Sword King felt that Li Zongjiu's two fingers were like two mountains, tightly clamping his sword. In the world, there was a person with such strength. What exactly were Li Zongjiu's fingers made of? Obviously, the Black Mountain Sword King was extremely shocked, but in the next moment, the Black Mountain Sword King also gave up the sword in his hand, and the power between his palms instantly condensed together. Immediately, the Black Mountain Sword King's palms turned pitch black. Black palm. Li Zongjiu raised his hand and also struck out a palm, but the Black Mountain Sword King could be said to be very confident in his palm technique. There was also a sinister look on his face. The Black Mountain Sword King had always only shown his sword technique in front of others, but if he showed his palm technique, then he would definitely take the opponent's life. Even when facing the terrifying brute tribe woman last night, the Black Mountain Sword King did not show this move. First, because there was no chance, and second, under such circumstances, he might not be able to hurt her even if he used it. In the Black Mountain Sword King's mind, he had already classified Do Ling as a brute tribe woman. Otherwise, how could a normal human girl have such monstrous strength? This was beyond the scope of Yuan power, because in terms of the strength of Yuan power, the Black Mountain Sword King could more or less break free, but the other party's monstrous strength directly restrained the Black Mountain Sword King's Yuan power. This caused such a situation to occur. But now, in the face of Li Zongjiu, the first thing to do was to catch him off guard. One move to kill. How stupid of you to fight with my palm. Die. The Black Mountain Sword King roared, and then a terrifying force poured out from his palm. Boom. Boom. The two terrifying forces collided. The Black Mountain Sword King roared, if you fight with my palm, the first thing I will shatter is your hand. As soon as his voice fell, the Black Mountain Sword King's own arm seemed to have been poured into a meat grinder. In an instant, the flesh and blood danced like snowflakes in the sky, but this was red blood and minced meat. Ah! My hand! Blood-extinguishing palm. When Li Zongjiu attacked, it was the blood-extinguishing palm that he had not used for a long time. Among all these moves, the one that Li Zongjiu was most comfortable with was the blood extermination palm. But the enemies he had encountered recently were just so, and Li Zongjio did not even need to use his yuan skill. Now, the Black Mountain Sword King was only slightly passable. Therefore, he subconsciously used the blood-extinguishing palm. The force of this slap directly shattered the blood on the Black Mountain Sword King's arm. Bang! Not only did his arm explode, but the other half of his body also exploded in an instant. Boom! A bloody hole appeared on the shoulder. The Black Mountain Sword King immediately understood that a hidden force had entered his body. Immediately, the Black Mountain Sword King pointed a few times on his body to stop the hidden force in his body. Hiss! The next moment, the Black Mountain Sword King saw a ray of light appear in front of him. His old partner of many years also made the Black Mountain Sword King's neck feel the sharpness of the Black Mountain Sword for the first time. Chapter 673. The Black Mountain Sword Monarch's head fell to the ground with a thud. Li Zongjio kept the Black Mountain Sword. This thing should be worth a lot of money. Then, Li Zongjio also took the Black Mountain Sword Monarch's storage ring. Oh! This old black's collection is quite rich. Li Zongjio immediately counted. There were 6 stalks of grade 6 medicinal herbs. The Black Mountain Sword Monarch must have spent a lot of time collecting these herbs to get Sang Chu to help him refine elixirs. However, he did not expect that before the herbs were fully collected, Li Zongjio had already taken advantage of them. In addition, there were 20 upper-grade primordial stones. There were more than 100 mid-grade spirit stones. Even a Yuan monarch elite only had this many treasures in his possession. It was truly embarrassing. This old thing is really poor. Li Zongjio could not help but say. In the past, Li Zongjio might have refined all the blood into blood beads. Devouring these blood beads would greatly improve his strength. However, the current Li Zongjio was no longer the brat who had nothing in the past. Now that he had a terrifying alchemy cultivation, he naturally did not need to absorb these things anymore. If he could consume these elixirs, who would refine these blood pills and the like? Therefore, Li Zongjio did not need to care about the blood on the floor. With a flash, Li Zongjio also left the inn. As for the corpses that were left behind in this inn, they would probably only be discovered after the inn's cleaning staff came in. One night. In Sacred Flame Royal City, it could be said that a storm was brewing. However, under the control of one person, countless storms gathered together and were directly suppressed. This storm had not yet brewed into a storm before it turned into nothingness in front of Li Zongjio. It was as if he was saying that no matter how capable he was, in front of Li Zongjio, he would not be able to do anything. The young pavilion master of the Longevity Pavilion was dead. The top secret guards had captured 2 suspects, Spirit Valley Sex Elder Sang Chu and Nantian Dan King. Now that the 2 of them were secretly locked up by top secret guards, no one knew where they were locked up. Therefore, the death of the young pavilion master of the Chongqing Pavilion had to be directly blamed on the 2 of them. Otherwise, who else could they look for? Some of the clues from that day had already been secretly sealed. If one wanted to find them, they would have to ask these top secret guards. The 3 big shots of the elixir industry had arrived at the Sacred Flame Royal City. However, none of them were left unscathed. The only one who was considered to be in a good state was Lu Wenshan. In addition, Nantian Dan King and Sang Chu were imprisoned in an unknown place. Even if the Spirit Valley sect wanted to get them out, it would not be an easy task. With the strength of the Spirit Valley sect, they were not strong enough to make the Shengyan dynasty release them. Even if they were released, the Longevity Pavilion would definitely not let the Spirit Valley sect go. The son of the Pavilion Master had died in the hands of these people. How could the Longevity Pavilion be polite to them? It was bound to be a war with smoke rising from all sides. The competition between the big shots of the elixir industry had always been fierce. Now that such a thing had happened, no one could predict what would happen next. Only Lu Wenshan was imprisoned in the White Deer Manor. Although he had suffered a lot of torture, he was still relatively safe. Before he received the ransom, Lu Wenshan wouldn't die so easily. At Lu Wenshan's level, even if he didn't eat for 10 days or half a month, he wouldn't die so easily. It was just that Lu Wenshan was imprisoned in the manor and did not know what was happening outside. Every day, he would just quietly wait. Because he had swallowed the thing given by Li Zongjiu, Lu Wenshan did not dare to leave the manor for half a step. Also, the Black Mountain Sword King had come in person and was beaten into a fool by a little girl in the courtyard. It made people feel extremely helpless. Even the Black Mountain Sword King had been crippled. It was estimated that they would need to gather 2 Sword King experts to rush into this small manor to rescue him. It was precisely under such a difficult environment that Lu Wenshan had already given up in his heart. The instigator of all this, Li Zongjiu, was also on the street at this moment, leisurely eating breakfast. Looking at the gradually bustling street, his heart was filled with emotions. As he grew older, he liked to feel emotional. Although Li Zongjiu looked like he was in his teens, Li Zongjiu's heart was incomparably vicissitudes. In his previous life, he had been busy cultivating. Even in this life, he had been constantly improving his strength. During this period of time, there were even more things to do. Now, more than half of them had been resolved. The Universe 9 revolving needle should have been delivered. Now that this matter was over, Li Zongjiu was ready to properly study the Hell Prajna technique. The elemental formula engraved in the Dark Sovereign Dragon's soul was definitely not bad. Perhaps the secret to breaking through to the Absolute Saint Realm was within it. Searching for the Absolute Saint Realm had always been Li Zongjiu's pursuit. When the situation in King's City is more or less stabilized, I can go back and see the situation. Li Zongjiu thought to himself. Just as Li Zongjiu was eating breakfast, a surprised voice sounded behind him. Young Master Li. Li Zongjiu had a fried dough stick in his mouth. When he turned his head, he saw a girl appear behind him. It was the eldest daughter of the 7-star firehouse, Song Jieyu's servant girl, Xiao Zhao. It's you. Sit, do you want to eat fried dough sticks? Li Zongjiu hurriedly greeted Xiao Zhao when he saw her appear behind him. Just now, he had wanted to find someone from the 7-star firehouse. After all, the Black Mountain sword was useless to Li Zongjiu. Besides that, the Thunderfall sword was useless in his hands. He might as well exchange it for some money. Or perhaps exchange it for some fire attribute weapons for the Li family to use. Young Master Li, I can't eat. I was preparing to go to the shop to work. I happened to pass by and saw you here, so I came to say hello. Xiao Zhao didn't expect to see Li Zongjiu in front of her house. You live here? Li Zongjiu asked. Yes, my house is nearby. Okay, I'll go to your house for dinner next time. By the way, help me exchange this thing for some money or fire attribute weapons for your young master and send it to the Li family in Wuxia City. Li Zongjiu said. As he spoke, he also handed over a storage ring. It was the storage ring of the Black Mountain Sword King. All the things inside were transferred to Li Zongjiu's southern ring. Okay, no problem. Xiao Zhao said happily. This young master Li Zongjiu had helped her time and time again. Moreover, he was very good to her. If Li Zongjiu was willing to go to her house for dinner, she would naturally be very happy. After receiving Li Zongjiu's storage ring, he didn't say anything and quickly left the place. Chapter 674. After breakfast, when he returned to the White Deer Manor, he just so happened to hear an extremely crazy roar coming from the backyard. At the same time, an extremely powerful shockwave swept over. Ha ha ha! I broke through! I broke through! Shadow Fox's shout came from the back of the courtyard. Li Zongjiu shook his head in disdain when he heard Inghu's shout. What a bunch of mortals! Breaking through to the Yuan monarch realm was an extremely basic thing. In some ancient factions, breaking through to the Yuan monarch realm was just the beginning. If the youngsters in these factions could not break through to the Yuan monarch realm before reaching adulthood, they would be treated like trash. There were no exceptions. This old fellow is so noisy. Dou Linger, who was sleeping soundly in the room, turned over and pressed the pillow to her ear. Li Zongjio felt helpless when he saw what was happening in his manor. A person who had just broken through to the Yuan monarch realm was shouting and yelling. This was simply shameless. He did not know what to be proud of when he had only broken through to the Yuan monarch realm at such an old age. There was also someone who claimed to be his personal bodyguard. However, he had never seen this bodyguard by his side when he was killing people. He had always rushed out alone to kill people. Li Zongjio was puzzled as to who was protecting who. The Howling Moon Wolf King's condition had recovered considerably. After all, the injuries he had suffered last night were not serious. Furthermore, he had the body of a Wolf King, so his injuries were recovering rapidly. Li Zongjio had also undergone some treatment last night. After the treatment, all his injuries had recovered. When he saw that Li Zongjio had returned, he raised his head and glanced at him. Then, he obediently laid down in front of Dou Linger's room. He opened his mouth and yawned. Then, he stretched his body and went back to sleep. Young master, I broke through. Ha ha ha. Inghu dashed out of the backyard and arrived in front of Li Zongjio. He was so excited that he almost started dancing around Li Zongjio. One could only imagine how happy Inghu was. In order to wait for the arrival of this day, they did not know how long they had waited. Previously, he had been roaming around the city day after day. Although he was only a half-baked assassin, he had still made a name for himself in the Sacred Flame Royal City. However, if he hadn't met Li Zongjio, his cultivation would have been crippled in no time. The number of masters in the city was extremely terrifying. In the future, the number of masters would only increase. For people like him, if he couldn't make a breakthrough in time, even if he wasn't killed while carrying out a mission, it was very likely that he would be killed by his enemies in the course of his daily life. That's enough. What are you showing off for? Li Zongjio said indifferently. Although Inghu had learned the doppelganger technique due to his talent, it was still very simple. You are practicing the doppelganger technique, right? Take my doppelganger origin technique and study it well. Li Zongjio casually took out a low-grade spirit stone and used his mental energy to draw a Yuan rune array on the low-grade spirit stone. This Yuan rune array was a kind of information Yuan rune array. Li Zongjio could use his mental energy to seal some things within this Yuan rune array. As for others, they only needed to use their mental energy to scan it slightly before they could see the contents of this Yuan rune array. What, this is the doppelganger origin technique. Inghu took the Yuan rune stone and his eyes were filled with disbelief. Yesterday, Li Zongjio saved his life and he was already grateful. However, at the same time, Li Zongjio also restored his shattered Yuan rune bead. One could only imagine how hard it was to do so. Therefore, Inghu was actually very grateful to this young master. This young master fell from the sky and appeared in front of him to save his life. Today, not only did he give him his Yuan rune bead, he even gave him a precious doppelganger origin technique. This made Inghu so touched that he was speechless. Scram to the side. If you still need me to save you next time, you can just wait for your death. My Bailu manor doesn't need trash. If you can't keep up, I'll have no choice but to replace you. Li Zongjio said indifferently. Inghu also understood what Li Zongjio meant and immediately nodded his head. Young master, don't worry. Inghu will definitely not disappoint you. Inghu said solemnly. If it weren't for Li Zongjio, he would have lost his life long ago. Therefore, Inghu also knew how to be grateful. Even though his strength had broken through, he had never thought of leaving Li Zongjio and living a carefree life. Ever since he followed Li Zongjio, he had seen all kinds of experts dealt with by Li Zongjio. He also deeply understood that if one did not have sufficient strength, it would be very difficult to survive in this world because one could be killed at any time. That old black man from last night, I will definitely hunt him down to the ends of the earth. Inghu thought of the Black Mountain Sword King from yesterday. There was a hint of viciousness in his eyes. If it weren't for this person's ruthless methods, he wouldn't have had to suffer like last night. As an assassin, it was normal for him to take revenge. He originally didn't have much confidence, but now he had broken through this threshold. Therefore, Inghu was full of confidence in his own strength. He had a chance to break through his own realm at any time and continue on his path of success. It might not be impossible for him to fight with the Black Mountain Sword King in the future. That guy is a grade 4 Yuan monarch. It's still too early for you to fight with him, Li Zongjiu said indifferently. He glanced at Inghu. This old man was too arrogant. He had just broken through and could barely be considered a grade 1 Yuan monarch, but he was already looking down on others. Inghu also shut his mouth, not daring to speak. The scene was very awkward. However, I've already chopped off that fellow's head. Those who come to my White Deer Manor to cause trouble will never return alive, Li Zongjiu said. Not far away, Lu Wenshan, who was secretly using his Yuan energy to eavesdrop, also trembled at this moment. His whole body seemed to have gone limp. The Black Mountain Sword King was dead. Chapter 675. Hearing this news, Lu Wenshan's heart trembled in fright. To think that Li Zongjiu would be so cruel and merciless as to kill the Black Mountain Sword King. Lu Wenshan dared not imagine that he had chased after the Black Mountain Sword King directly. It was not that Li Zongjiu did not have the ability to do so. Lu Wenshan recalled how he was caught by Li Zongjiu even though he had already escaped from the Shi family. Lu Wenshan had experienced Li Zongjiu's relentless pursuit. Go ahead. I'm going to cultivate in seclusion for a while. Li Zongjiu waved his hand. This manor seemed to be a little small. If they wanted to set up something else, it would obviously not be enough. You said that the land was sold to Chao Wu Pavilion. I think this piece of land is just enough for me. Li Zongjiu asked Inghu to take care of these matters. The Chao Wu Pavilion's land had not started construction until now. Obviously, they had encountered some trouble. Inghu was naturally not good at these things, so he immediately went to Buyue Casino and told Taifai about it. When Taifai heard that they wanted to buy land, he naturally contacted them directly. Later, he found out that this piece of land belonged to the Boulders Business Alliance. It was a piece of land that had been collectively purchased. The Boulders Business Alliance was not a small business alliance in the city. Previously, the Chao Wu Pavilion had intended to buy this piece of land as an outdoor project, but the members of the Boulders Business Alliance did not reach an agreement. In order to buy this piece of land, they had to buy a barren mountain and a piece of wilderness not far away. These two pieces of land belonged to several businesses in the Boulders Business Alliance. Once this piece of land near the core of the White Deer Manor was sold, they would not be able to buy it. Naturally, no one would be interested in the leftover land beside it. Naturally, the Chao Wu Pavilion was unwilling to spend so much money. Therefore, the negotiation was stuck at this stage. Both sides refused to budge. These businessmen needed to see real money before they were willing to let go. After Tai Feihe followed up on this matter, he roughly understood the whole story of the matter. After learning about this, Taifai realized that if he wanted to buy land, he would have to spend twice as much money to buy the barren land beside it. This really gave Taifai a headache. Recently, the business of these casinos had been declining day by day. This was because a few special casinos had been set up in the city with the support of several factions. Therefore, these types of casinos were very popular, causing the performance of these traditional casinos to gradually decline. Young master, since you want to buy it, I will buy it first. Taifai knew Li Zongjiu's character very well. Since he had made up his mind, he would never give up. Even if he had to resort to unscrupulous means, he would achieve it. The piece of land originally encircled by the Chao Wu Pavilion, which was almost the same size as the Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor, was priced at 600 billion gold yuan, which was equivalent to 6 billion purple yuan. It was a total of 1,000 mu. Each mu of land was priced at 6 billion gold yuan. In terms of purple yuan, it was equivalent to 60 million purple yuan. Li Zhongjiu had only spent 80 million gold yuan when he had bought the small manor. The price of 1 mu of land was indeed quite expensive. In addition to the core land of 1,000 mu, the barren land and Yellow Mountain, which were close to 10,000 mu of land, were also priced at 10 billion purple yuan. The total cost was 16 billion purple yuan. Although the Chao Wu Pavilion was not short of money, it was not rich either. After all, it belonged to the Shengyan dynasty, so it needed to be allocated by the dynasty. If it had been 60 purple yuan, it would have been reasonable. But now, it was a total of 160 purple yuan. This was only the money to buy the land. After that, they still had to carry out construction. Some of the land was simply a wasteland without the slightest bit of spiritual qi. Even if they bought it, they would need to spend a lot of manpower and financial resources to nurture this piece of land again. Only when it was nurtured well would it be suitable for these students to cultivate. If it was not nurtured well, it could only be used to rear pigs. With such a conservative estimate, they would need to spend at least 30 billion purple yuan to build the land. The cost would be too great. Therefore, the Chao Wu Pavilion could not bring themselves to do it. If they bought the land and didn't have enough purple gold, they would probably go bankrupt and the entire project would be ruined. The expansion of the construction itself was to use this construction to attract some attention, and then use it to raise the threshold of tuition fees and so on. Even if it was an academy, it still needed to make money. If it did not make money, how could it maintain these martial arts fanatics? For example, the Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor, the more they operated, the richer they became. This was because the elixirs refined by these academies were all sold to the Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor. Firstly, they could exchange it for some money. Secondly, they could obtain a certain amount of contribution points to increase their sense of honor. In this academy, they would obtain more convenience. It was an extremely wonderful thing. Buying elixirs at a low price and then selling them at a high price was naturally a way to make money. But the Chao Wu Pavilion was different. This group of martial arts fanatics would get injured easily and eat a lot. Elixirs, food, and even clothes were in short supply. Naturally, they became poorer and poorer. It was quite miserable. Therefore, one should not judge these people by their appearance. In fact, only they themselves knew the hardships they suffered. Taifai brought Du Lieni to find the people from the Boulder Business Alliance. After negotiating for nearly half a month, they finally bought the land at a price of 13.5 billion purple yuan. This matter was considered to have come to an end. Fortunately, these people had bought the land before Li Zhongjiu came out of seclusion. Otherwise, it would not be strange if Li Zhongjiu directly got rid of these businessmen. On the other hand, when Xiao Zhao handed the storage ring to Song Jieyu that day. When Song Jieyu first saw the storage ring, she knew that it was not simple. This was because a storage ring of this quality could only be worn by a Yuan monarch elite. When she opened the contents of the storage ring, Song Jieyu was completely stunned. Let's not talk about the thunder beheading blade and the thunder crushing sword. The forging method of the Black Mountain sword in her hand was very profound. In addition, it had been nurtured by a Yuan monarch elite for a long time, which gave the Black Mountain sword an extremely domineering attribute. Even if it was used for research purposes, it would still be very valuable. This sword, I'm afraid it has some history. She put the Black Mountain sword aside. Then, Song Jieyu saw the remaining two weapons, the thunder-crushing sword and the thunder-beheading blade. Together with the sword case, these two weapons are definitely the pinnacle of craftsmanship in the forging world. Song Jiayu exclaimed repeatedly. If these two weapons were sent to the forging room and the blacksmiths were invited to study them, these blacksmiths would probably faint from happiness. These three weapons were definitely considered priceless treasures. Even obtaining one of these weapons would be a great honor. If these three weapons were used well, it would definitely improve the craftsmanship of the 7-star fire room to another level. The status of the 7-star fire room in the world of weapons was similar to the status of the 1,000 Flavors Herb Hall in the world of elixir pills. It was just a place to buy and sell weapons and was not very prominent. True Yuan monarchs and even Yuan monarchs would not come to the 7-star fire room to customize weapons. There were even more sects and clans that refined weapons in the underworld. Although the threshold for this industry was not low, it was not as difficult as refining elixir pills. In the current era, there were more than 10 big shots in Alchemy Street, and they were all ranked among the top in the underworld. The Bright Thunder Craftsman Workshop, which belonged to Qingyuan Villa, was ranked among the top 15. Chapter 676. The 7-star fire room could only be considered as buying some weapons. It was still a matter of quantity. In terms of forging techniques, a little bit of precision was enough. In the future, the development of the 7-star fire room would definitely encounter a bottleneck due to the rapid growth of competitors. Moreover, the forging techniques had reached the limit, and there was no way to continue to improve. Now, Li Zongjiu had sent these weapons. It was enough to improve the current level of the 7-star fire room. Of course, the research involved was also very tiring. If I'm not wrong, this sword should belong to the Black Mountain Sword King. How did it appear in Li Zongjiu's hands? Song Jiayu couldn't help but wonder. She was somewhat familiar with the Black Mountain Sword in her hands. After all, they were all in the line of making weapons. She more or less understood these things. If she remembered correctly, the Black Mountain Sword King's Black Mountain Sword should have come from the craftsmanship of the Black Armor sect. The Black Armor sect's development in Yuan tools was mainly towards the development of armors. Relying on the resources in their hands, they could forge the strongest defensive armors in the world. Of course, if these armors wanted to be strong, their weapons couldn't be weak. Otherwise, how would they be able to test the strength of your armors? The craftsmanship of the Black Armor sect is above that of the Bright Thunder Craftsman Workshop. Although this sword is not as good as the Bright Thunder Craftsman Workshop, after some consideration, the things that can be obtained will definitely be more than these two sabers and swords. Li Zongjiu's move could be said to be a timely help. If you said that you wanted to buy a weapon like this, the other party would probably treat you as a fool and directly buy it back. How could such a thing happen? It was extremely difficult to obtain such a top weapon. Even if one went directly to a sect like the Black Armor sect, one might not have a chance to obtain these weapons. How should I repay such a big gift? Song Jiayu couldn't help but have a headache. These things could not be solved with just some money. Therefore, Song Jiayu couldn't help but worry about this. But soon, Song Jiayu also thought of a very good idea, and the corners of her mouth could not help but curl up slightly. If that's the case, no amount of money can satisfy them. Instead of giving it to Li Zongjiu, it's better to directly support the Li family of Wuxia City. Song Jiayu quickly ordered her men to make preparations. At the very least, they had to open a branch in Wuxia City. Moreover, this branch would be directly managed by the Li family. At the same time, the Li family was in charge of all weapons exports within the Dingquan province. This was undoubtedly an extremely important decision. Even with Song Jiayu's current status, there was no way she could make the final decision for the time being. However, Song Jiayu only needed to show a little of this thing to shut these people's mouths. This was obviously an opportunity to make friends with Li Zongjiu. That would definitely not be wrong. From the previous incident, it had already been shown. The three major alchemy magnates attacked Li Zongjiu at the same time, but in the end, they ended up killing each other, and it was unknown whether they were dead or alive. This situation was even more shocking and shocking. After a little investigation, those who were slightly familiar with Li Zongjiu knew about it. The development of this matter must have something to do with Li Zongjiu. Therefore, Song Jieyu also took this opportunity to make friends with Li Zongjiu, and even the Li family. To Song Jieyu, paying a little was not a problem at all. Even if there were some slightly discontented voices in the elders' seats, they were all calmed down by Song Jieyu. Moreover, Song Jieyu personally set off to discuss and develop this business. The Li family in the Wuxia city only needed to sit inside and wait for such a big business to come looking for them. Such a great opportunity had been delivered to their doorstep. Now, the Li family no longer had any opponents in the Wuxia city. Even the city lord had to avoid the Li family. Fortunately, the relationship between the two families was not bad, and there were no major problems at the moment. The days in the Sacred Flame Royal City gradually stabilized. Recently, some things couldn't help but be restrained, and the days went on as usual. A month later. In the Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor, the year-end assessment was also very naturally carried out. Li Zongjiu, who was supposed to appear, did not appear. It was as if he had disappeared, and became extremely low-key. However, as the only participant in the first year of the Heavenly Dawn department, Kun Arashi's strength was also displayed in front of everyone, and he suppressed everyone. He took first place in the year. Mu Qingyun, Mo Suli, and the others in the same year were all defeated by Kun Arashi. Moreover, in the final competition of the whole school, Kun Arashi also extremely arrogantly charged into the top 10 of the year. His ranking on the Alchemy Master ranking had impressively reached the 10th place. He directly squeezed Li Zongjiu down. However, Kun Arashi knew in his heart that if Li Zongjiu went up, he wouldn't even have the chance to be presumptuous. Moreover, if it wasn't for the wisp of flame that Li Zongjiu gave him, the residual sun fire, it wouldn't have been easy to achieve today's achievements, and he had to be extremely grateful to Li Zongjiu. However, after this battle, the name of this youth from Kun Castle also gradually spread in the Sacred Flame Royal City, causing people to be extremely shocked. They were shocked that this youth from Kun Castle actually had such great ability. If it wasn't for the fact that there were a few people above, Kun Arashi would probably have directly jumped into the sky. 3 days later is the time to enter the secret realm. Why hasn't the boss appeared yet? Kun Arashi had won glory for Ling Yan, and he had already promised the two of them that they could enter the secret realm of the academy to comprehend when they were in the White Blaze Mountain. This time, he naturally had to fulfill his promise. According to Li Zongjiu's performance in the Sacred Flame Royal City, it was enough to see that this Li Zongjiu's strength had already surpassed the level of an ordinary student. Therefore, Ling Yan didn't care about this Li Zongjiu at all, and let him fend for himself. However, since he had promised Li Zongjiu, he naturally had to fulfill it. In 3 days' time, they would enter the secret realm to cultivate. With such a good opportunity, Kun Arashi naturally wouldn't let it go. Moreover, Li Zongjiu had previously instructed that this matter must be settled, so Kun Arashi also came to Li Zongjiu's White Deer Manor to wait. It had already been 2 months since he went into seclusion. In these 2 months, Dou Ling had already fulfilled her promise and guarded here for a month. It should have been time for her to leave, but she didn't. Instead, she continued to stay in the White Deer Manor. The weather in winter was slightly cold, but there wasn't much of a change. On the 3rd day, Li Zongjiu finally walked out of the secret room. At this moment, looking at Li Zongjiu's temperament, it was surprisingly gentle. At the same time, looking at Li Zongjiu's appearance, it seemed that Li Zongjiu's every move contained a majestic aura, as if with a wave of his hand, he could stir up the wind and clouds within 10,000 miles. Damn, boss, what happened to you? Don't tell me you became a monk. Chapter 677. Koen Erisher was astonished by the feeling of having nothing to worry about. There seemed to be a feeling of transcendence. In just a short 2 months of closed-door cultivation, there had already been such a terrifying change. If he continued his closed-door cultivation, he might directly walk out of it as a bald head. This is the realm. What do you know? Li Zongjio said. During his closed-door training, Li Zongjio had been studying the Hell Prajna technique. However, the Infernal Prajna technique was like entering hell itself. Even for someone of Li Zongjio's level, it was extremely difficult to traverse the quagmire of hell. However, Li Zongjio had more or less figured out the general cultivation method. Cultivating the Hell Prajna technique was to create one's own 10 directions hell. 10 directions hell was Li Zongjio's final and complete form of space control. As for what kind of power would appear in this space, it was up to Li Zongjio himself. No matter what kind of attribute it was, it had to be refined to the peak state. Now, Li Zongjio was preparing to open the first hell. However, with Li Zongjio's current strength, it was still difficult to open it by force. He needed to be lucky. As for the attribute to be opened, Li Zongjio had a little idea in his mind. He wanted to integrate the blood-soul world into his 10 directions hell. This fusion process was extremely long and required the support of a large amount of yuan power. During this period of time, Li Zongjio had not been able to complete this process. He had merely figured out how to proceed on this path. The rest of the matter would have to be done slowly. This is for you. The second scroll of the universe 9 revolving needle. You can leave this place at any time. Li Zongjio handed Do Ling, a primeval stone engraved with elemental runes. 2 months ago, countless people were fighting for it. But now, it had fallen into Do Ling's hands so easily. Even Do Ling, herself was a little surprised. Although she had waited for an extra month, she had been very relaxed in these 2 months. In her free time, Du Lieni would also come to the mansion. Then, he pulled the shadow fox to sit down and play cards with him. Life was pretty comfortable. Of course I have to take it, but I have nowhere to go in the city. I have graduated this year, so I might as well give you face and accept your invitation to stay at your house for a while. Do Ling took the primal stones and said naturally. I didn't invite you. Li Zongjio stared at Do Linger with wide eyes. Yeah, boss didn't invite you. Lan Kuan also seriously tried to recall, but Li Zongjio didn't seem to have said such words. Say that again. Do Ling turned to look at Kuan Erisher. She clenched her fists and a crisp sound burst out from her fingers. Immediately, Kuan Arashi's heart thumped. Then, he looked at Li Zongjio. Boss, you did invite me just now. Did you forget? Clearly, in these 2 days, Kuan Erisher, the first year's #1 in Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor, had been beaten very badly by Do Ling. Basically, he had no chance to make a comeback. The #1 on the alchemist list was definitely not someone who could climb up so easily. Let's not talk about this first. Tomorrow is the opening of the Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor's secret realm. We have to hurry back and prepare. If we're late, there won't be any good seats. I heard that everyone can gain different insights in the secret realm. Some people can even directly break through a big realm in the secret realm. Kuan Erisher was a little excited as he thought about it. He also imagined that he could enter the secret realm and obtain an unexpected fortuitous encounter. Then, he could directly break through. From then on, he would reach the peak of his life. But that kind of situation was rare. You're going to the secret realm? That place is very boring. It's just a pile of broken statues. Do Ling said. As the eldest senior sister of the Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor, Do Ling had naturally been to the secret realm to observe more than once. So when Do Ling jumped out and said this, it was very important. Statues? Li Zongjio was puzzled. In his previous life, he had never entered the secret realm. Because Li Zhongjiu's identity was not a disciple of the Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor, he was blocked by the seal of the secret realm. He did not have the chance to break through, even with his supreme being strength. If he forced his way in, he could only destroy the secret realm. At that time, those old fellows of the Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor would naturally jump out and fight Li Zhongjiu to the death. The gains would not make up for the losses. So this time, Li Zhongjiu wanted to properly experience the legendary secret realm. Yes, you'll know when you get there. Dou Ling nodded and said. Since Dou Ling wanted to continue staying here, Li Zhongjiu had no reason to ask her to leave. In any case, during this period of time, with Dou Ling's feeding, the Howling Moon Wolf King's strength had increased by a lot. After all, Dou Ling was a powerful alchemist. At the very least, her alchemy skills were not below that of the Nantian Pill King. Moreover, Lu Wenshan had learned his lesson recently. He obediently became a slave in the White Deer Manor. By refining pills, they could exchange them for food, blankets, and other things. With Lu Wenshan's skills, the pills he refined were passable. So the Howling Moon Wolf King and Shadow Fox could be said to be treated very well. Since the two of them were happy, Lu Wenshan's situation naturally became more comfortable. As for whether there was a problem with the pill, Dou Ling only needed to take a look at it to know clearly. Therefore, it would not be easy to do anything to the pill. There were only 3 people in the entire White Deer Manor. 2 of them were better than Lu Wenshan in terms of alchemy skills. This made Lu Wenshan feel that there was nothing to be proud of. He might as well continue to stay here and learn. Perhaps Dou Ling would come and give him some pointers one day when she was in a good mood. Then, he might be able to make a breakthrough. Unknowingly, even the arrogant Lu Wenshan had learned to behave in the White Deer Manor. He no longer dared to be arrogant and domineering. Instead, he had developed an extremely humble and low-key mentality. In the White Deer Manor, there were equivalent to 3 Yuan monarchs guarding it every day. For such a small place to have so many experts, it was truly shocking. Young master, wait a moment, wait a moment. The Qi family asked me to pass this to you. At this moment, Yinghu ran out of the kitchen. Ever since he had made a breakthrough, besides cultivating, Shadow Fox had been cooking. He had even bought some fish and placed them in the pond in the courtyard. Every day, he would go fishing and bring the fish to the kitchen to make a pot of fish soup. Shadow Fox had sent over a box. There was an elemental inscription seal on the outside of the box. If the box was opened, it would be impossible to restore it. It was guaranteed that no one had opened it before. If it had been opened before, it would be obvious at a glance. The Qi family sent it. Li Zhongjiu recalled that he had saved the Qi family's transport team in the wild forest. Among them, there was a supreme-grade Yuan Stone King. Until now, Li Zhongjiu was still regretting that he didn't kill all of them and take away the King of Primordial Stones. Now that he saw the box, he immediately opened it. Suddenly, a surge of Yuan Qi was released from the box in his hand. Buzz! That roar was so loud that it even caused these people to stop breathing at this moment. Kuan Erisher and Dou Ling's eyes widened instantly. This is a supreme-grade Yuan stone. Dou Ling's eyes widened. What was the relationship between the Qi family and Li Zhongjiu? They actually gave Li Zhongjiu a supreme-grade Yuan stone. No, this is not a supreme-grade Yuan stone. This is a fragment of a supreme-grade Yuan stone. Dou Ling was shocked after sensing it carefully. Chapter 678. Supreme-grade origin stones were just supreme-grade origin stones. Among the many types of origin stones, supreme-grade origin stones were already of very high quality. Most of the time, supreme-grade origin stones were even faster than some elixirs. Therefore, some experts would treat supreme-grade origin stones as life-saving elixirs. They were placed inside They were waiting for an opportunity to appear. Unless it was absolutely necessary, they would not take it out and use it. A supreme-grade origin stone was almost equivalent to an existence that defied the natural order. A supreme-grade origin stone like this contained a huge amount of energy that was enough for a Yuan monarch powerhouse to cultivate for a year. During this year, a Yuan monarch powerhouse did not need to do anything. He only needed to absorb the energy within a supreme-grade origin stone to increase his cultivation base. If a supreme-grade origin stone was added to this supreme-grade origin stone, it would not be strange for it to break through and become a divine weapon. Most of the time, supreme-grade origin stones were also used for the cultivation of a supreme-grade origin stone. However, supreme-grade origin stones were as rare as supreme-grade origin stones. Not to mention possessing it, even wanting to see it was an extremely difficult thing. Now, the Qi family had actually found a supreme-grade origin stone and gifted it to Li Zongjiu in the form of a fragment. However, this fragment was a treasure that could not be exchanged for with hundreds of supreme-grade origin stones. Not bad. Since this matter had already passed, Li Zongjiu did not care about it anymore. If he kept thinking about it, Li Zongjiu did not know how much time he would waste. Yi Shiwen kept the fragment of the primordial stone. It was better than nothing. It was already a very good thing to be able to get a fragment of the primordial stone in this era. Dou Ling, and the others could only feel envy in their hearts. When Li Zongjiu returned to the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor, the first thing he did was make a trip to the library. The old man had completed his task well. At the same time, he had also worked very hard to help Li Zongjiu search for this medicinal ingredient. Therefore, he didn't come to the library for a long time. Instead, he randomly grabbed an elder to come here. After that, the old man went all over the world to look for medicinal herbs. Li Zongjiu didn't see this old man, so he just let it be. After that, he casually strolled around the academy and heard that these people seemed to be discussing Lan Kun recently. After all, Li Zongjiu's limelight had passed for a long time and he had not appeared for a long time. Many people were guessing whether Li Zongjiu was dead or not. Even though Li Zongjiu was not in the Sacred Flame Royal City, the situation had never calmed down. The competition between the few princes had also become extremely intense. However, the ninth prince was the first to suffer a blow. The ninth prince's subordinate clans had already been suppressed to the point where they were almost completely wiped out. In addition, the vice-commander of the city guard army had actually rebelled. This made the ninth prince immediately want to distance himself from this matter. He didn't dare to hesitate or linger on this matter. If he was really accused of rebelling and selling firearms, he would be in big trouble. If he was convicted of the crime, the ninth prince would not be able to protect himself. The Spring Flower and Autumn Moon Pavilion. Since Li Zongjiu had eliminated most of the experts from the poison sect in the southern region, it had gradually gained a foothold in the city. It had also maintained a very good relationship with Li Zongjiu's Li Chamber of Commerce. The Pan family's fate was naturally very miserable. Du Lieni naturally would not let the Pan family off. Inaction was a mistake in itself. Therefore, Du Lieni did not let the Pan family off. Up to now, the ninth prince's forces and arrangements had been abolished. In addition, the ninth prince had a good relationship with the young pavilion master of the Chongqing Pavilion. The ninth prince more or less bore some responsibility. Now, there were 7 battalions under the city guard army. The strength of the Tusk battalion had increased by leaps and bounds during this period. Its recent momentum was also quite fierce. If this continued, Wang Ding would be able to take over the position of deputy commander in less than half a year. This was surprising. Wang Ding, who didn't have anyone supporting him, was actually able to reach this stage. The main reason was that the Tusk battalion under him was too powerful. He was even able to defeat 2 of the other battalions during the army competition. What did this mean? It was equivalent to having an extra battalion of soldiers. This level of training was not something that could be achieved by ordinary people. If this continued, the Tusk Battalion could be trained to the level of one of the 4 trump cards. This was no longer the strength of the City Guard army. This terrifying breakthrough was really shocking and unexpected. However, Wang Ding did not forget that the reason why he could reach this stage was because of Li Zongjiu's nurturing and opportunities. This matter would naturally be brought up later. On the morning of the second day, Li Zongjiu and the rest of the students came to the square and waited. Kuan Erisher stood beside Li Zongjiu and introduced the changes in the past 2 months. First of all, the Genius Tower had been broken through 3 days ago. Now that the 15th floor had been opened, the Genius Tower had truly entered the next era and level. What's there to be proud of? Li Zongjiu said indifferently. The Genius Tower had a checkpoint of 7 floors. Since the 14th floor had been broken through, the following 7 floors would be very simple. With Li Zongjiu's current strength, he could easily break through the 20th floor and beyond. The main thing was that Li Zongjiu had already seen some of the things behind, so there was nothing to be proud of. There's nothing to be proud of. If you have the ability, go and try it. Someone heard Li Zongjiu's arrogant and ignorant words and immediately stood up to ridicule him. There were not many people gathered in the square, but the person who came up was someone that Li Zongjiu knew. Guosi. When Li Zongjiu saw Guosi coming forward, he immediately frowned. To be honest, even if this person was asking for a beating, if you rushed up and beat him more than 10 times, it would be annoying. This was not even a challenge at all, so why did he always look like he was courting death? I might as well just kill this kid. Li Zongjiu thought in his heart. But soon, Guosi moved aside, and a figure walked out from behind him. This person looked a little unfamiliar, but looking at the way he walked, it was obvious that he had some foundation. Even Guosi was willing to be his little brother. Boss, this person is the one who broke through the Genius Tower, the 3rd-year Qian Wuji. Wasn't Dou Ling ranked first before? Now it's this guy. Kuan Erisher said beside Li Zongjiu. The person in front of them called Qian Wuji was the guy who was ranked 2nd on the alchemist ranking. Because he was always suppressed by Dou Ling, Qian Wuji worked hard to surpass this woman. With this hard work, he rushed to his current position. After coming out of seclusion, he received even more attention. He enjoyed the attention and worship of the people around him. For Qian Wuji, this kind of thing made him really happy. Now, the entire Heavenly Dawn Medicine Manor had to give way to Qian Wuji. Everyone who saw him had to call him eldest senior brother. And now, when he appeared in the square and was ready to accept the admiration of everyone, who knew that he would hear someone slander him and look down on him. Some people are only good with their mouths. Don't let your mouth be cut off one day. When that time comes, let's see what else you can do. Qian Wuji said with a ruthless face, as if he was already thinking about when to find someone to cut off Li Zongjiu's mouth. Chapter 679. Li Zongjiu naturally saw Qian Wuji. Qian Wuji was short, broad, and fat. He was clearly a short winter melon. On his face, there was a thick, pitch-black mole. The long hair on the mole extended from his nose to his chin. Let me tell you, even if you have such a big mole on your face, I will beat you up until your mother can't recognize you. Li Zongjiu pointed at Qian Wuji and said. Li Zongjiu's tone was extremely unfriendly as he directly ignored Qian Wuji. He didn't care who Qian Wuji was. If Qian Wuji dared to utter another word, Li Zongjiu might really pounce on him and beat him up. This little brat only knew how to act tough in front of an old man. What was there to act tough about? Wouldn't it be great if you just quietly did your own thing? Why do you like to act tough? And when you act tough, you especially like to run in front of Li Zongjiu. Li Zongjiu naturally couldn't be polite. You are Li Zongjiu, right? I know you are not convinced. How about this, you and I have a bet. In a while, in this secret realm, we will see who can last the longest. Whoever loses will be an alchemy boy for a year. Qian Wuji wasn't a fool. He wouldn't be so easily angered. To be able to get first place on the alchemist ranking and surpass Dou Ling, he had to have some extraordinary skills. Qian Wuji wouldn't be careless even in these aspects. As he spoke, Qian Wuji stroked the long hair on his mole. Trash like you doesn't deserve to be my alchemy boy. You should eat my shit for a year. Li Zongjiu said without any trace of politeness. Hearing Li Zongjiu's vulgar words, the surrounding people couldn't help but cover their mouths and laugh. Kuan Erisher, who was beside him, also burst out laughing. Ha ha ha, eating shit, haha, that's quite suitable. Boss, look at his mouth, it's as big as a toilet bowl. Kuan Erisher also pointed out this crucial point. Immediately, Li Zongjiu couldn't help but laugh. Hearing this, the surrounding people laughed even more happily. This instantly caused Qian Wuji's heart to explode. These two damn things actually dared to use his most painful point to mock him. You're courting death. What Qian Wuji hated the most in his life was when people talked about his sore spot, his big mouth, and the mole on his face. In fact, it wasn't a mole. It was a birthmark. Immediately, a terrifying mental energy fluctuation erupted from Qian Wuji's body, and an incomparably terrifying storm was set off in the surroundings. It seemed to have formed into several extremely fine flying needles, which flew towards Li Zongjiu and Kuan Erisher at the same time. These two people deserved to die. With Qian Wuji's status, even if he were to publicly violate the school's rules and teach these two arrogant fellows a lesson, he believed that not many people would come forward to blame him. Therefore, Qian Wuji also unscrupulously launched an attack. In fact, there was nothing wrong with saying such words. After all, Li Zongjiu and Kuan Erashi's words were really too unpleasant. In terms of right and wrong, there were still students who stood on Qian Wuji's side. However, Qian Wuji slightly overestimated his own strength. Before the flying needles formed from mental energy could reach the two of them, they were completely incinerated by an invisible flame. Sensing the appearance of this flame, Qian Wuji didn't dare to be careless. He instantly withdrew his mental energy to prevent his mental energy from being damaged by the flame. The one who attacked was not Li Zongjiu, but Kuan Erisher. Li Zongjiu also looked at Kuan Erisher with slight surprise. He didn't expect Kuan Erisher to be able to cultivate the residual yang fire to such a degree in such a short period of time. Now, Kuan Erashi's level of mastery had even surpassed that of Mr. Lon. Little shorty, if you want to die, I can send you on your way. Kuan Erisher said coldly. With the increase of his strength, Kuan Erashi's temper wasn't so friendly. Moreover, Qian Wuji's attack was so vicious. If it was an ordinary person, they would definitely be injured by this move. Therefore, Kuan Erisher didn't hold back. His eyes were full of cold killing intent. When Qian Wuji saw this, he was instantly stunned. A mere first-year student actually dared to challenge him. Immediately, a cruel smile appeared on his face. You're Kuan Erisher, right? When you kneel in front of me, you'll know what it means to be short. Qian Wuji clenched his fist and said. Then, he pointed to the ground in front of him, as if he wanted Kuan Erisher to kneel in front of him. What? Do you want to have a life and death duel? I think the two of you don't want to go in. At this moment, the atmosphere was so tense that the surrounding people didn't even dare to come close. They were afraid that if the two of them fought, it might spread to them. Wouldn't that be very innocent? The person who came was Vice Principal Qi Dan. When Vice Principal Qi Dan rushed over, she immediately suppressed the momentum of the two people. Kuan Erisher also withdrew his thoughts and stopped arguing with the other party. Qi Dan also looked at Li Zongjiu in surprise. Hey, kid, you're not dead yet. Li Zongjiu, the devil incarnate who wreaked havoc in the heavenly palace, hadn't appeared for a long time. Now that he appeared in front of her, it made Qi Dan a little surprised. I'm still far from death, Li Zongjiu said angrily. He didn't expect Qi Dan to be so arrogant now. She actually dared to talk to him like this. Back then, this kid followed behind him and tried to please him. Is everyone here? Qi Dan looked around and said. Then, she didn't count the number of people and directly waved her hand. Let's go. Those who didn't come will be disqualified. The number of people who were able to enter the secret realm was not small. At a glance, there were close to 50 people. If that was the case, then this secret realm really wasn't that great. Li Zongjiu and Kun Erisher followed behind. Qian Wuji and the rest were behind them. They stared at the two people in front of them with resentment and hatred. These two are really arrogant. I'm going to make sure they don't get anything in this mystic realm. It's time to teach them a lesson. Otherwise, they will really think that no one in the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor can take care of them. Guosi, who was at the side, was also fanning the flames. He had long wanted to humiliate Li Zongjiu and Kun Erisher. He wanted to return the pain and humiliation that Li Zongjiu had inflicted on him by twofold, threefold, or even tenfold. This time, he couldn't let go of such a good opportunity. With Qian Wuji taking action personally, it wouldn't be difficult to deal with these two people. Chapter 680. Why didn't Shueiyue come? Li Zongjiu asked Kun Erisher as he walked. Previously, Shueiyue and Kun Erisher were quite close, but now, he hadn't seen Shueiyue for a long time. Mo Suli and Mu Qinyun saw her, but they just greeted each other. They weren't really good friends. After all, Mu Qinyun didn't agree with some of Li Zongjiu's methods. Shueiyue seems to have something going on at home. She doesn't want to tell me. I don't know what's going on. She hasn't come to class for a long time. Kun Erisher scratched his head and said. Obviously, this matter had been troubling him for a long time. However, if he wanted to take care of these things now, it seemed that he was still a little lacking. Therefore, Kun Erisher was also desperately trying to improve his strength during this period of time. Kun Erisher was also very clear about this point. Only by improving his strength could he solve any problems. Just like Li Zongjiu, Kun Erisher hadn't seen Li Zongjiu being troubled by anything. Take some time to understand. Just as the two were talking, the crowd also came in front of a huge stone door. Around the stone door, there were impenetrable mountain walls, and they looked more solid than ordinary mountain walls. At the door, there were two old men sitting cross-legged on the stone platform. Judging from the surrounding dust, the two seemed to have been sitting here for a long time. When they saw Qi Dan coming with people, they opened their eyes. Two elders, I've brought the students to enter this secret realm to train. Even with Qi Dan's identity, he was still very respectful to the two people in front of him. When he said that, he also cupped his hands. Well, the strength of these students this year seems to be a little weak. One of the elders could not help but say as he surveyed his surroundings and looked at the various students and disciples before him. Since even the vice headmaster had to be so respectful to this person, the other students naturally did not dare to say anything. Why didn't that girl come? The other person also looked around, but didn't see the person he wanted to see. His heart sank, and he was obviously dissatisfied. This made Qi Dan's face look quite awkward, because he didn't know where that girl was now. In this year's batch, only Qian Wuji is slightly worthy. Wuji, you go in first. The elder who was mocking these disciples at the beginning said. This elder's name was Elder Bai Ku, and the other elder was Elder Sui Rong. The two together, they were once the famous Ku Rong duo in the underworld. Now, they were in the Heavenly Medicine Manor, helping the Heavenly Day Medicine Manor to guard this secret realm. People couldn't help but sigh. However, there was no need to doubt the strength of these two. Elder Bai Ku had a good impression of Qian Wuji. Now that he saw Qian Wuji here, he naturally had to greet him. Under the envious gazes of the crowd, Qian Wuji came in front of Elder Baiku. Thank you for your praise, Elder. Wuji doesn't deserve it. There are so many talented people in our generation. How can you let me go in first? This opportunity should be given to my junior brothers and sisters. They are the future pillars of the Heavenly Day Medicine Manor. Qian Wuji went forward and said with an extremely hypocritical tone. Li Zongjiu realized that Qian Wuji and Guoxi's superficial skills were of the same origin. What kind of person taught these two to be so good? No need to be humble, go in. Elder Baiku said. Then, with a slap of his palm, Qian Wuji was sent flying into the void. Qian Wuji rushed into the stone door. Just as he was about to hit the stone door, he realized that the space in front of him fluctuated. Then, Qian Wuji's body merged into the stone door and disappeared. Seeing that Qian Wuji had such a special treatment, the disciples below were envious. This was the benefit of being strong. Li Zongjiu wasn't in a hurry. He wanted to see what was going on first. After all, this was his first time in the secret realm. He didn't know what was inside. Those who have previous experience can go in first. As for the rest of you, listen up. Although this secret realm isn't too dangerous, it's inevitable that something unexpected will happen. If you encounter a seal that you can't break through, you have to retreat immediately. Elder Sui Rong said. As for what kind of encounter you will get, it will depend on your luck. It was as good as not saying anything. These new disciples still had no idea what was inside. They only knew that people could die in here at any time. I heard that there are layers within this place. Every day, a restriction will be released. If one is able to break through it, one will be able to train in the next area. If one is unable to break through it, one will be ejected from the original area 3 days later. Koen Erisher said. In other words, when you enter first, you will encounter the first area. If you can't break through to the next area by the second day, you can only cultivate in this area for 3 days. Then, you will be automatically ejected from the secret realm. If you can continue down, you will be able to stay in the secret realm for a longer period of time until you can't break through to the next area. Why is this different from what Do Ling said? Li Zongjiu couldn't help but look at Koen Erisher. It sounded like they were in a completely different place. Didn't they say that there were many statues? It seemed that for someone of Do Ling, her strength, these seals were nothing. Therefore, she didn't care about them. The previous strongest person stayed in here for 21 days. That's equivalent to cultivating in the 7th area. When he came out, he also had a great breakthrough in his cultivation. I will also stay for 21 days. Koen Erisher rubbed his hands together as if he was looking forward to what would happen next. When most of the people had gone in, Yi Zichen suddenly opened his eyes. Li Zongjiu and Koen Erisher went forward together. You must be Li Zongjiu. I advise you to keep a low profile. In this world, there are many capable people. Elder Baiku looked at Li Zongjiu, who had stepped forward, and said in an indifferent tone. He had the attitude of a powerful expert as he commented on Li Zongjiu. Just guard the door properly. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Li Zongjiu said disdainfully. Then, his body disappeared into the boundary in front of him. Chapter 681. Only Elder Baiku's face was left, and his face instantly turned purple. As elders, they didn't have the qualifications to enter this secret realm. Even someone as strong as Li Zongjiu couldn't barge in. Therefore, after Li Zongjiu and Koen Erisher rushed in, they couldn't do anything. The only thing they could do was to wait for the two of them to walk out on their own. However, this would take some time at least. Li Zongjiu's words just now almost choked Elder Baiku to death. Basically, he wouldn't be able to recover in half a day. The anger in his chest could only be forcefully suppressed in his chest. It was difficult for him to spit it out. One had to know that there were still so many students who hadn't entered yet. Where would he put his old face? Mo Suli also hadn't entered yet. At this moment, when he saw this exciting scene in front of him, he was also a little surprised. Mo Suli's impression of Li Zongjio wasn't bad. At least Li Zongjio's actions were more in line with Mo Suli's heroic image. However, Mo Suli felt that if Li Zongjio continued to cause trouble, something would happen sooner or later. In the 2 months when he didn't appear, it was peaceful. However, the moment he appeared, he actually angered Elder Baiku. This Li Zongjio's guts were really big. One had to know that Elder Baiku's battle record was quite glorious. 20 years ago, he was definitely a top expert who dominated a region. Now, he was actually mocked by Li Zongjio. When Li Zongjio was captured, Li Zongjio's ending wouldn't be so good. Sigh, this guy really isn't afraid of anything. Mo Suli had a headache. Following this, no one dared to be presumptuous. If they weren't careful, wouldn't they bump into the muzzle of Elder Baiku's gun? Then, it wouldn't be strange if he directly threw them out. Before they entered, Elder Baiku was the one who had the final say. At that time, if they say that they won't let you in, then you won't be able to go in. Li Zongjio and Kun Erisher had just landed. This seemed to be the entrance of a dilapidated palace. The surroundings were desolate, but there was an extremely large open space. The people who had entered before were all standing there. Behind him was the boundary that he had just entered. If he was accidentally thrown out, it would be equivalent to leaving the secret realm. Seeing the arrival of Li Zongjio and Kun Erisher, Li Zongjio smiled. Qian Wuji, who was sitting on the steps in front like a moon surrounded by stars, slowly stood up as an extremely excited smile appeared on his face. The two of you are finally here. Now, kneel before me and I will consider allowing you to continue cultivating in this secret realm. Close to 20 people had already gathered around Qian Wuji. There were a total of 50 people, and almost half of them were already standing beside Qian Wuji. If these people casually launched a mental attack, it would be extremely easy to form a terrifyingly strong mental storm. In fact, there was a certain method to break through the boundary of this secret realm. With the help of others, you might be able to break through more easily. Some of the barriers that you couldn't break through, but this depended on how many people were willing to help you. If no one was willing to help you, then you would be useless. Therefore, this team was extremely important right now. Those 20 people were all veterans, and basically all of them had come to the secret realm once. Therefore, after entering, they directly chose to hug the thighs of others. Previously, when they were outside, they were still a little reserved, but after entering, they didn't hesitate at all. The deeper they went, the more profound the things they could comprehend. Therefore, for the sake of this opportunity, these people could accept a little grievance. As your senior brother, I can kindly remind you that if you are accidentally thrown out, there is no other way. If you want to enter again, you can only wait until next year. Qian Wuji threatened. He was clearly telling Li Zongjio that if Li Zongjio didn't listen to him, he would directly throw the two of them out. The space behind him fluctuated, and Mo Suli and Mu Qingyun also walked in. However, when they saw the grim situation in front of them, they knew that things weren't good. These people had obviously joined forces and were waiting to throw Li Zongjio and Kun Erisher out. Even if these people really did so, it was understandable. What could they do? Don't bother about these things. Mo Suli immediately wanted to go out and argue, but Mu Qingyun pulled him back, wanting to persuade him not to interfere in these matters. After all, both sides were walking on different paths. He helped me before, I can't just sit by and do nothing. Mo Suli shook his head, then walked up to him. Senior brother Qian, just as Mo Suli was about to speak and discuss with Qian Wuji, he saw a figure appear beside Qian Wuji. If Mo Suli didn't see wrongly, this person was Li Zongjio. When did he appear? Why was he so fast? Even Qian Wuji was taken aback. What are you trying to do? Qian Wuji exclaimed. In the next second, Li Zongjiu directly grabbed Qian Wuji's sleeve. Then, with a bang, he directly threw Qian Wuji onto the empty ground in front of him. Bang! Qian Wuji's entire body was lying on the ground, falling right in front of Mo Suli. When Mo Suli saw this scene, he was instantly stunned. What are you doing? Guosi also shouted, but in the next second, Guosi's entire body was grabbed and thrown forward. Bang! Guosi directly fell in front of Kuan Erisher. Li Zongjiu leaped and arrived in front of Qian Wuji. He directly stepped on Qian Wuji's face, causing blood to splatter from his nose. Move aside, the blood will splatter on your skirt. Li Zongjiu said to Mo Suli. When Mo Suli heard this, he immediately grabbed his skirt and hid to the side. The remaining 20+ people all stared at the scene in front of them. They didn't expect Li Zongjiu to subdue Qian Wuji in one move. It was truly unexpected. You're courting death. Qian Wuji also didn't want to admit defeat. Enduring the pain on his face, his mental energy transformed into a sharp sword and swept towards Li Zongjiu. Boom! However, this mental energy sword instantly exploded on the spot. It was actually caught in Li Zongjiu's hand and directly crushed on the spot. 100 Revolution Golden Rock Fire. A golden flame suddenly ignited between Qian Wuji's palms. This was because Qian Wuji also felt Li Zongjiu's strength and didn't dare to be the slightest bit negligent. When the golden flame appeared, a powerful aura also spread out, as if it wanted to burn Li Zongjiu into ashes. However, before Qian Wuji could release the 100 Revolution Golden Rock Fire in his hand, Li Zongjiu slapped his face. Pa! The flame in his hand was also directly extinguished. This slap was crisp and clear, causing Qian Wuji to be completely stunned. Even with his mental energy, he couldn't block the power of this slap. Chapter 682. Qian Wuji fainted from the beating. In front of Li Zongjiu, it could be said that he had no power to fight back. Wasn't Senior Qian Wuji the #1 expert on the alchemist list? Why was he lying on the ground like a dead dog? You! What are you doing? Someone stood up and said. After all, they had just hugged Qian Wuji's thigh. Now, in the blink of an eye, they saw their thigh being stepped on. Such a scene was a little confusing for these people who had just clung on to Qian Wuji. At this time, should they rush out and avenge their thigh? At the same time, they should perform well. However, their performance must be within the scope of their ability. Otherwise, if they rushed up rashly, they would at most be sending their heads to their deaths. That would be really not worth the loss. Li Zongjiu turned around and glanced at that person. That person seemed to be deterred by an invisible force and immediately scratched his head. As he looked left and right, he seemed to want to say that the person who spoke just now was not him. You are violating the rules of the academy. Guosi was also beaten up by Kuan Erisher. Kuan Erisher had long wanted to beat up this seemingly cultured scum. Now that he had this opportunity, how could he let it go? After a round of beating, Guosi's face was also beaten black and blue. Throw him out. Li Zongjiu kicked the unconscious Kuan Erisher on the ground and sent him flying. He just happened to roll under Kuan Arashi's feet. Then, Kuan Erisher directly grabbed the two people on the ground, one in each hand. No, don't throw me out, no, Guosi exclaimed, but there was no change in his behavior. Kuan Erisher directly threw the two people out of the boundary. At this moment, outside the stone door, Qi Dan had also turned around and left after completing her mission. There were a few disciples who had arrived late and could only stand outside the stone door in frustration. They were filled with regret. Even though they knew that there was such an important matter to attend to today, they still chose to sleep for a while. Looking at the expressionless faces of the two guardian elders, they did not dare to speak at all. Who knew if they would directly beat them up? Baiku, tell me, who do you think will be able to last the longest among the little fellows this time? Elder Sui Rong scratched his white beard and said with a smile. Although the two of them cultivated different cultivation techniques, they had worked together for many years and traveled the world together. The relationship between them was very sincere. Seeing that Baiku had not recovered from the humiliation he had suffered, Yi Mo decided to find a topic to talk about. It doesn't matter who lasts the longest. I'm waiting for that brat to be thrown out so that I can personally cripple him. Baiku said coldly. He actually dared to say that he was a gatekeeper, and even told him to cut the crap. With his cultivation level, just a few words of advice from him would be enough for them to be grateful to him. He actually dared to boast so shamelessly. Let's see how many people in the Jianhu will jump out to take care of him in the future. After angrily speaking, Elder Baiku's thoughts changed. Why should he make things difficult for a brat with such a loose tongue? Wouldn't that be lowering his own status? Wouldn't that destroy the state of mind that he had cultivated for so many years? After calming down, Elder Baiku's eyes flickered. If we're talking about who can last the longest, it would be this brat, Qian Wuji. Previously, that brat had already charged into the sacred hall, but unfortunately, she didn't have enough luck. I wonder if this brat can make it into the sacred hall this time. Elder Baiku nodded and said. The mysteries of the sacred hall are things that even you and I couldn't pry into in the past. Who knows how many reincarnations it will take for someone to discover it. Elder Sui Rong sighed and said. These people were also very curious about some of the secrets of this secret realm. However, after going there once, they deeply understood that the secrets inside were not something that they could pry into. Their current cultivation level was far from being enough. Just as the two of them were chatting, a few light runes suddenly flashed on the stone door behind them. Seeing this scene, the two of them immediately revealed a shocked expression. Ha! Elder Baiku's face was also filled with a trace of astonishment. Could it be that someone is being thrown out now? I'd like to see which unlucky brat it is. Just as Elder Baiku's voice faded. Bang! Two figures flew out in an instant and smashed onto the floor. Both of their faces were colorful, and most of their eyes, noses, and the like were already in a distorted state. Anyone who saw them couldn't help but be shocked. Oh my God! Isn't this? When they were barely able to distinguish the two people lying on the ground, the two of them were shocked. Wasn't the one who was thrown out, Qian Wuji, whom Elder Baiku thought highly of? The other one was also Guosi, who was pretty good. However, Guosi's luck was obviously not as good as Qian Wuji's. However, at the moment, the two of them were fated to meet the same fate. They were both thrown out. Who on earth had such great ability to throw these two people out? One was ranked first on the Alchemy Master ranking, while the other was ranked third in the Alchemy Master ranking. However, the two of them were now lying on the ground like dead dogs. Moreover, their faces were beaten to such a state that it was difficult to recognize them. Elder, you have to seek justice for us. Even though Guosi was a man, when he saw this, his heart could no longer hold it in. He burst into tears. Since he was young, when had he ever suffered such grievances? This caused Guosi to feel grief and indignation. Who had the guts to throw you out? Even Elder Sui Rong couldn't stand it anymore. It was one thing to throw them out, but to beat them to such a state was too arrogant and too much. It's Li Zhongjiu. And Koan Erisher. These two bastards. Elder, quickly go in and kill the two of them. Guosi said with extreme grievance. Qian Wuji still hadn't woken up. It was obvious that Li Zhongjiu had hit him a little too hard. As a result, Qian Wuji still hadn't woken up. Shut up. Fighting and killing, where is your decency? Elder Sui Rong's face turned solemn. It was fine if it was just a fight, but if it escalated to the level of revenge, then it had to be treated strictly. No one would tolerate it. Every disciple of the Heavenly Star Medicine Manor was nurtured with great care. How could they lose their lives because of a personal grudge? It was too absurd. Therefore, killing each other was absolutely forbidden in the academy. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.